What's up, you guys? Johnny Beane here, and usually we're doing these shows live, but we're pre-recording this. We got Amanda Peters. Amanda, great to see you. I think NAMM show was the last time we hung out.
Yeah.
And it's coming up again, so hopefully we can hang out.
I'll be at this one.
Ron
I'm
Gunner will be here. Right on. And Ron, who is our special guest today?
An icon of rock, Mr. Bob Daisley.
Hello.
Bob Daisley. Oh yeah, the applause. There we go.
I'm not going to hit any of the stuff on here, so I'm not.
That's funny.
Bob Daisley, welcome, man.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
Wow.
And again,
Where did the gunner come from? That's a nickname, obviously.
Oh yeah, I used to do professional shooting.
Oh, I see. Right.
It's like steel plate challenges and stuff like that.
Right.
So that was where that came from.
Right.
And for some reason, most of my life, everybody just said, "Hey, Gunner." So I was like, "Well, we'll just make it Ron Gunner." So there we go.
Oh, okay.
So,
that's cool. Very cool.
Yeah, I want to thank you, Amanda and Bob, for taking time out to do this. This is a extreme treat show for me. I don't know, Johnny's the Van Halen life fan, and I am. Well, you see right there. Randy and the music and everybody that worked with him is just, that's my biggest regret. I was in LA in 77, 78 and had the chance to see Quiet Riot at the Whiskey and did not go.
Oh, right.
I wish I would have.
Right.
I really wish I would.
They used to play at the Starwood and places like that too, didn't they? Yeah, I remember I played at the Starwood.
Or maybe it was a Starwood, yeah, because it's where they had their big production with the police lights and everything. Yeah.
Yeah, I played at the Starwood with Widowmaker. I remember it well.
Very cool.
We all know that I'd sent some questions in, but if you don't want to answer one, just say so. Just say skip, whatever, and we'll do that.
I'll do my best.
I know a lot of bass players that really look up to you, and for good reason. But
Thank you.
And you're welcome. Thank you for doing what you've done. That's the best part. So I know a couple of them would like to know, like, what got you into playing bass to start with.
Well, I was about 14 at the time. I started guitar lessons when I was 13. I remember I turned 13, and the following week I started guitar lessons. It was just in a class with a teacher at the front and about sort of 20, 25 pupils or so. And one week I'd been doing attending the guitar lessons for about probably like a year, 15 months, something like that. And one week the teacher brought in a little band, and there was a stage at the end of the hall. It was just a sort of community hall sort of thing, and it was only a small hall. And he put a band on just to show us the various roles within a band. There was a rhythm player and somebody playing lead. It was in the days of sort of instrumental stuff. And as soon as I saw the electric bass, I thought, wow, I love that. It's just, to me, it felt like that's the pulsating heart. That's the backbone. That's the strength. But with the sort of love and sensitivity in it. And I thought, that's what I want to do. That's it. And it just happened like that. And I went home and told my mum. I said, Mum, I don't really want to do guitar lessons anymore. I want to play bass. And she was very supportive. My mum, yeah, she was lovely. She said, all right, if that's what you want to do and you're sure, we'll go into the city and get you a bass guitar and a little practice amp, and we'll see how it goes. And I formed a little high school band that we used to play just sort of, half a dozen songs in school concerts and that, So, yeah, I was 14 when I got my first bass and began then.
Well, Well, that kind of eliminates the second question. Were you formally trained in music? So,
well, a little bit, yeah. Not extensively, but I learnt the basic rudiments of music from the guitar classes, and I did sort of research bits and pieces later in my life, through books and things like that, and you just sort of gradually learn as you go along, naturally as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know a ton of musicians, and I know a lot of bass players, and only 3 of them were like you that wanted to play the bass. The rest of them were guitar players who went to play bass so they can get in a band.
Right.
So if you're playing bass, you always have a band to go to because they're always looking for bass players.
Like Noel Redding and Ronnie Wood with the Jeff Beck group and that sort of thing. Where they are good guitarists, and they went on to bass. But to be honest, I always thought that Ronnie Wood was a better bass player than he was a guitarist. I loved his guitar playing and his sound and his approach with the faces, and it's great stuff. And even with the Stones, he's a great player. I always loved his bass playing.
That was even Geezer Butler's story too. Wasn't he like Ozzy's guitarist first, then went to bass when they got Tony? I think it was something like that.
I don't know. I'm not 100% sure about that. Maybe.
Yeah, I thought he was a guitar player.
I read Geezer's book. I read Geezer's book last year, and maybe. Yeah.
I think it was just weird because I know 3 guys that grew up wanting to play bass. Everybody else wanted to play guitar, then went to bass.
Right. Well, I started on guitar, as I said, and I wanted to be a guitarist, but as soon as I saw bass, it wasn't out of necessity so I could be in a band or anything. It was my choice. I thought, bass, that's it for me.
One of the guys is playing bass now. One's playing because of Geddy Lee, one's playing because of you, and one's playing because of Geezer. you 3 guys brought these guys, made these guys decide we want to play bass only.
Oh, well, that's nice. It's always good to hear, positive feedback about how you influenced someone's, music life, or just their life in general sometimes too. Yeah.
Well, these guys are very happy for you 3.
Well, you've played bass too, Amanda, haven't you? As well as guitar. Yeah.
I learned when I was 14.
Yeah. Well, there you go. Peas in a pod.
Well, I have kind of a connection with you, Amanda, with Dennis. So that was kind of interesting. Did you actually know him, or did you just? I know you said you kind of like took his place at Kramer or something.
I didn't meet him. He passed away long before my connection to Kramer. But Kramer did approach me to do artwork on guitars. So it was sort of like he'd already passed on. But no, I didn't know him. I do know people who know him.
I still have voicemails on here that I won't take them off from him. So, and I may have one. He was doing one for me at the time he passed. So I may end up having the last one he ever painted. It's I talked to his daughter, and she said they haven't had. She didn't want to go through his stuff yet, that kind of stuff. She said, but the order form, if she finds it, she'll send it to me. So
he didn't die while you were talking to him, did he?
No. No, it's sad though because he had cataract surgery, and he was so happy. He's like, now I can get back like I was doing in the 80s. And then it wasn't much longer after that before he passed.
How old was he?
Let's see. I'm 59. He was older than me, so he was probably. Well, at the time he died, he was probably 62, maybe 63.
That's pretty young, really, isn't it?
Yeah. But yeah, most of the painted guitars that you saw on the 80s in the video were all painted by him. Like he did all Motley Crues, he did Rough Cuts, he did all kind of them. So.
Yeah, all the Kramer, a lot of the Kramer stuff in the '80s. A lot of those graphics, like the cool graphic guitars, were all Dennis Klein's.
So yeah, it's kind of weird connection with everybody here. So in one way, shape, or form. But all right, Bob, for the next question is what was your first bass?
My very first bass.
What was your first, and which one is your favorite? Put it that way.
Oh, okay. All right. The very first bass I got when I was 14 was a Futurama. A Futurama. It was at the time, it was 1964, and it was 35 pounds. And I got it. Yeah. But I played that for quite a while until I think I had it for like a year, 18 months or something, and then I upgraded a little bit, and I got a Maton bass. Maton guitars were quite reputable, and they still are. I think even George Harrison had a Maton guitar at one stage. But favorite bass, I don't know. I started collecting in the 70s, and I've had several friends in vintage guitar shops that I used to visit, and it was like a kid going into a toy shop, you know. And so I have quite a few. Most of them are on my website, and I have several favorites, I suppose. But the main workhorse, the one that's done probably the most touring, the most recording, and that is the 61 Precision.
Sweet.
Nice.
Yeah, it's I bought that in 1972. It was only 11 years old when I got it, and it was quite worn, and a lot of the paint was worn off. And a friend of mine, Clive Colson, who lived in the apartment below mine, he said, "Oh, we'll take the paint off." He worked for Led Zeppelin, and he had quite an influence on me, and he was the one who'd connected me with Stan Webb with Chicken Shack. So I was in Chicken Shack when I bought that 61 Precision, and he said, "Yeah, we'll take the paint off," and he did it with me, and we did it together, sort of thing. So even though it does kind of fall in the category of things I wish I'd never done, because well, you know, you take the paint off something and you take the originality of it, but it's become sort of an extension of me because it's been used so much, you know. And it is just we lacquered the wood, and so it's just wood colored, and that's it's a 61 slab board Precision. It's I mean, it plays well, it records well, and I've done an awful lot with it. It's been the workhorse, you know.
Yeah, when the wood ages like that, you can't beat that tone. Well,
that's it. That's one thing you can't recreate is age, and plus things hold energies. Yeah, you know, it's how psychometry works. You know, when you get a psychic or a medium or whatever, they hold your watch or your something you wear, and they get energies from it because things hold energies. You know. I remember sometimes I used to go into the guitar shop and I'd pick up a bass and start playing it, and the guy that I knew, a friend of mine, was Chris Trigg, and he used to say there's songs in that one. In other words, there are energies that somebody has owned that's been creative, and I would agree with that.
Well, I have this right back here. It's a 59 Les Paul Jr. original that my dad bought in 1960.
Ah, lovely.
And it's I'll show it real quick. It's naturally relict after all these years.
Sure. Yeah. I don't like relic stuff. Relic stuff to me is phony. So it's either real relic or keep it new.
We talk about that all the time on these shows.
Oh, lovely. Yeah.
But you can see
I have a bass like that, just that shape and that
really
shape and color. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
You can see it's got some marks.
Yeah.
And right back
from
here,
you, huh?
And right back here is the original amp that he bought with. So he bought this guitar, that amp, it looked like an alligator skin case kind of
yes,
thing.
I know.
And a
Yeah,
cable.
yeah.
He got everything for like $149
Wow. Wow.
back in 1960. Now,
Yeah.
I had
in 1960, $149 was a lot of money.
Yeah, that's what he said. Because when I remember growing up, he's like, "Well, I only got $149 in that," and I was like, "Well, that ain't nothing." He's like, "Well, it was back then when you can buy a car for
That's
$15."
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but I had a guy come here and he threw $12,000 down on my bar in the other room and said, "You can have this. Give me that guitar and amp." I was like, "No, it's sentimental."
Yeah, of course. It's irreplaceable.
But the sound you get out of it with the only thing that's been changed is the jack cover, because the original was black plastic and it broke.
Original frets?
Yeah, still original frets, never been touched. The neck's never even been adjusted.
Wow, that's great. Yeah.
But they're like, "Oh, we got to have that." And I'm like, "No,
we got to have that." Yeah, sure. Went off.
There's no price. When I see that, I've had this guitar my whole life.
Right.
That's the very first guitar I ever touched, very first one I ever played.
Yeah.
And the fact that it was my dad's, it's just, there's no price on it for it. But
sure, of course.
Besides that, it's just because I've heard the junior ones they remade.
Yeah.
So many years ago.
Not a pass on that.
The sound difference between this, from the aged wood to the original pickup is just night and day compared to the newer ones.
Well, that's it. You can't recreate the wood, aged wood.
Yeah. Yep. Very true. You can't. So that just sounds great. So I understand what you're talking about your 61. That's.
Yeah.
That you find something you like, it works, and it seems like the older they get, the better they sound.
Yeah, it seems that way.
Well, cool. That was a good answer. Thank you.
I'm actually over on Bob's website, and I found the bass. And
the 61 Precision. Okay.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking through all of them. I found the one that looks just like his guitar. There's the one.
Oh yes, yeah.
It looks exactly like your guitar.
Version of that, yes.
And I can once we put this video up, I can put I can show the bass on the screen.
Sure. Yeah.
It says it's a 60 Gibson EBO.
Yeah.
Is what it says. Yeah.
Yeah. EB just good for electric bass.
It looks just like your guitar, Ron.
Cool.
Yeah, it's the same.
Bass version.
Yeah. It's like the bass version of that guitar. Yeah. It has, like so many Gibsons, it's had the head snapped off and it was repaired. So that
one's never broke.
Oh, yeah.
I better not.
I think it had something to do with the way the wood grain, the way they used the wood grain, the direction of it. It made it vulnerable to having the head snapped off, and that happened to a lot of.
What amazed me about this one is I remember as a kid this thing hitting the floor a few times, and part of it was because of me, and part of it was because of my sister.
Yeah.
But it never broke. So I don't know if it just didn't hit right, but thank God it never broke.
Right. That EB3 that I did the Blizzard album with, that headstock came off that.
Oh, wow.
You only had to look at them the wrong way, and I remember that. Yeah, I had to get that fixed.
Let's see. Okay, next question. Because I kind of did a poll. Excuse me. I kind of did a poll with some of my friends. Let's come up with some questions.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
So, one was, did you do lyrics in every band you were in, or for all the bands you were?
No, some of them it was out of necessity, and some, like in Rainbow, Ronnie was a good lyricist, so that was sort of monopolized by Ronnie. And Gary Moore was pretty self-sufficient in the writing department, so he wrote all his own lyrics. But I wrote some in Uriah Heep. I wrote a lot in Mother's Army. I wrote all of them in the Aussie situation. So it varied from camp to camp sort of thing. But how I first got into it really was that Ozzy wasn't a lyricist, and neither was Randy, and it was only the three of us to start with, and we were auditioning drummers and writing songs at the time. And I remember we were at a rehearsal place called Trans Am Trucking in a place called Ilketshaw in Suffolk in England. And I came down, it was a live-in situation, and we were auditioning drummers and writing, and I came down one morning and Ozzy and Randy had tried their hand at writing some lyrics for one of the songs, and I thought, God, this is awful. You know, oh no, it was like Spinal Tap, but worse, you know. So I thought, I'm going to have to wear the lyricist hat, and I just thought, you know, we want to be self-sufficient. We don't want to get writers outside of the band, and we want to keep it under our roof.
Mm-hmm.
So I took on the role as lyricist and wrote the lyrics for the songs. There was a couple where Ozzy had a line or a title or something like that, but, you know, like 99% of it was me.
That kind of leads into the next question. What was it like working with Ritchie Blackmore and Ronnie?
It was great. I mean, I got on really well with both of them, and that they were a sort of, I don't know, a really productive team working together. You know, it was. I remember being at. There was a studio in France where we recorded the Long Live Rock and Roll album, and we had the song Gates of Babylon. And Ronnie went into his room, and he was in there all day, and you could hear the track playing as he was writing the lyrics, and he came out, and it was just a nice atmosphere. It was productive, and it was a sort of learning curve for me too, because that was the first time I'd been in a big name band. You know, I'd been in other bands that toured the world, and you know, with Widowmaker, we opened up for ELO all around America, and so I'd had all that under my belt. But working with Rainbow was the first headline act, you know, that was a big band for me. So it was, I just sort of, you know, I put my head down and got on with it and tried to be as professional and reliable as I could. And I got on fine with all of them, with Cozy, with Ronnie, with Ritchie. And, you know, Ritchie and Ronnie together, I thought it would last longer than it did, but I think Ritchie wanted to be more sort of, he wanted chart success and radio success. And Rainbow, as it was more of a sort of respected hard rock band. And Ritchie kind of turned it into a pop band, you know. I mean, it wasn't corny pop, but it was still radio-friendly pop, and which is why Cozy was the only one who stayed after Ronnie and I and David Stone had gone. But Cozy actually left. He said, "No, this is not for me. It's turned into a pop band. You know, it's not what I signed up for." So.
Yeah,
you can't knock the success of it. They had success as a pop band, but you know, like, you know, with Graham Bonnet and with Jolene Turner and great singers, you know, but it wasn't the Rainbow that it used to be.
Cozy was an excellent drummer, by the way.
Oh, great! Yeah. I knew it wouldn't work out between him and Gary, though.
Can you tell us why?
Oh yeah, it's like, you know, I remember we went there was a rehearsal place in London called John Henry's, and we started there on a Monday, and by the Tuesday I phoned Gary at home and I said, "Are you sure about this?" It's because there was a thing between Cozy wanted to do what he wanted to do, and Gary had very strict and immovable ideas about how it should sound and what should be played, and they were starting to get on each other's case, or on nerves. You know, because Gary would say, "No, there's no fill there. Listen to the record. There's no fill there, or it's this fill, not that fill." You know, it's like different. And Cozy was getting sort of, and I'd phoned Gary and I said, "Are you sure about this? I don't think it's going to work out, to be honest." And Gary said, "No, it's fine. It's only just starting. It'll fit in, slot in. You know, it'll be good. Don't worry." And then by the Friday of that week, Gary phoned me and he said, "Yep, I think you're right. And and so we had to put the the tour commencement got postponed a few days while we rehearsed with Chris Slade. And Chris Slade, I mean, he was perfect. He just came in and we just worked all day for a few days, and he was great. Perfect for the band, yeah. But I knew from about the second day of working with Cozy, I thought, no, this is not going to work.
for people who's never been in a band, yes, there is dissension in the ranks with band members all the time.
Yeah.
Anybody who's been in a band can say that and know that's the truth.
Yeah, but like you say, Cozy was a great drummer. He was a very sort of forceful powerhouse in Rainbow, which is what it needed. He was the driving engine, you know.
Yeah, he was. I put him. I'm not. I mean, I kind of put him in the same category as John Bonham. Very hard-hitting, deep-sounding player.
Yeah.
I mean, not that he was like John. You know, they weren't not the same, but it's just that style.
Well, Lee was a similar sort of drummer to Bonzo as well.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
How long ago did Lee die? I remember that, and I remember hearing about that, and that was
4 years ago.
Yeah, it's 2020, wasn't it? Yeah.
That's
Thank
sad.
you, man.
I'm an encyclopedia.
Yeah.
Moving on to the next question.
Mm-hmm.
What was your first meeting of Randy like?
Well, I'll start from the beginning, which is when I got the phone call from David Arden, Sharon's brother, at Jet Records, and he said Ozzy's looking to put a band together. I'd met Ozzy at a club in London called the Music Machine. I'd come from Rainbow, and I was in between bands, and a friend of the family, close friend of mine, Pete Mills, he said to me, he was sort of like a older brother or father figure kind of thing, Londoner, and he said, "You've got to put yourself about, son." You know, it's like that. And I said, well, you know, and I said, okay, well, there's a gig up at the Music Machine tonight. We'll go up there. So he came up there with me, and he was very supportive, because there was a band on there called Girl, and they were assigned to Jet Records. And I thought, well, I'd been with Jet Records with Widowmaker. So I thought, if I go up there, there'll be people from Jet Records at least that I'll know, and we'll get backstage and I'll talk to people. And we saw the show, went backstage, and I saw a guy called Arthur Sharp, who was a rep at Jet Records. And he said to me, "Ozzy's here. Do you know Ozzy?" And I said, "Well, I've met him. I wouldn't say I know him." Mm-hmm. So he introduced us. And Amanda's gone. And he introduced us, and Ozzy said to me, he said, "I'm putting a band together. Would you be interested?" And I said, "Yeah, for sure." So I got the phone call from David Arden. He got me a railway ticket up to Ozzy's. Ozzy picked me up at Stafford Station, where he lived. I went to his house, and he had a couple of other guys there. Now, Ozzy had left Black Sabbath the year before, I think. This was 79, and I think in 78, Ozzy left Sabbath, and he wanted to get his own band together, and he had a couple of players there. Then these guys, I can't remember their names or much about them, but he had two other players there, a drummer and a guitarist, and we played together, and it worked. But Ozzy and I went out to the kitchen, and he said to me, "Well, you know, what do you think, Bo?" And I said, "I'd love to work with you." Ozzy and I got on like a house on fire. It was, immediate, just clicked. It's great. And I said, "But I'm not, these other two guys," I said, they're nice guys, and they play well and blah, blah, blah. I said, "But I wouldn't put them as world class, you know." He said, "Hang on a minute." He walked away, walked into the room where they were, and he said, "You can pack up, fellas, and go home. It's not working out." And that was it. They're gone. So it was, at that point, it was just me and Ozzy. So he phoned Arthur Sharp at Jet Records, and I still remember his words. He said, "Yeah, Bob and I get on like a house on fire. The fire brigade's just left." It was just sort of, but then he told me, he said, look, I saw this guitarist in LA. He's a guitar teacher. And as soon as he said guitar teacher, I sort of envisaged a bloke with a cardigan and pipe and slippers and and then he said, and his name's Randy Rhoads. I said, well, let's get him over. And so we went to David Arden and we said we'd like to fly Randy Rhoads over, this guitarist that Ozzy saw in LA. And David at first said, nah, he's unknown, he's young, and we'll get somebody here. We want to keep it UK based, But eventually, David Arden's words, and I still remember them, word for word, he said, against my better judgment, I agreed to fly Randy over, and he flew Randy over, and the three of us, I met Randy in Jet Records' office in Gloucester Place in London, and Ozzy and I walked in, and when I saw Randy at first, he had sort of perfect hair and fitted clothes, and I thought, is he
high-heeled shoes?
Yeah, yeah. Ozzy and I thought that he might be gay at first, but he wasn't. I mean, he had a girlfriend, Jodie, and he was certainly one of the boys. But he looked very sort of, well, quite effeminate, But it was just him being Randy. He had style and class, but we got on great. And I remember we went up to Ozzy's on a train up to Stafford, and then we only stayed, I think, like one night or something. We had to play together, and it just clicked, as soon as we finished the first sort of little work, I think we only jammed together kind of thing. And as soon as we'd finished the first little stint of jamming together, Randy and I looked at each other, and it was almost simultaneously we said, oh, good playing, or I like your playing, or something like that. And we said it to each other at the same time. So I thought, well, yeah, this is going to work. Well, anyway, Randy was going to stay in London at a hotel for a while. Sorry, I missed that. Sorry.
I just say that eliminates the next question. Was how you and Randy got along with music right away, or did it take time?
Yeah, it was. It was straight away. It was. Yeah. It was. It was funny how we said virtually the same thing to each other at the time. It's good playing, or I like you playing, or something like that. But
that's
Randy
great.
and I caught a train the next day from Stafford Station back to London. He was going to stay in a hotel in London for a while, and eventually we came back up to the area where Ozzy lived and stayed in a hotel and rehearsed and wrote and auditioned drummers and that at Ozzy's place at first, and then other places after that. But then the next day when I was catching the train with Randy, we were standing on Stafford railway station, and I remember thinking to myself, I got this sort of premonition, and I was thinking to myself, one day people are going to be asking me what was it like to play with Randy Rhoads, and I don't know what it came from. It was just sort of the premonition, and it was a definite one. I remember it like it was yesterday. So
that's just wild to have that idea.
Well, my mum was like that. You see, she was very psychic, and she was very accurate. The most accurate psychic I've ever known in my life, and she was very much like that. So I'd probably have a bit of that in me, I suppose.
Mm-hmm. Wow. So did you guys hang out a lot then too, just outside of music?
Oh yeah, I remember the first time I saw Life of Brian, which was one of my favorite Python film. It was with Randy and just near Marble Arch in London. Yeah, he and I went to see Life of Brian when it had just come out, and it was on at the cinema.
Wow. Yeah. This isn't on there, but how did you bring Lee in?
Well, we auditioned so many drummers. I mean, drummer after drummer. Some days it was 2 or 3 drummers had come down to where we were, and we'd audition. Jet Records kept finding them and lining them up, and
like a cattle call.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. We auditioned loads of them. Some of them were good drummers, but didn't quite get on with them, or some of them were nice guys, but they weren't quite what we were looking for drum-wise, or, you know, that combination of he's got to look right, he's got to be one of us and get on with us immediately, and he's got to be the right drummer for us with the fire and the aggression, you know. And we, drummer after drummer, and we were still drawing blanks, you know, and it was getting close to when Jet Records wanted us to go into the studio to actually start recording the album. And I remember David Arden said, well, if you don't find anyone, we're going to have to just find a session player, maybe somebody like Cozy Powell or something, to go in there with you and just do the album. But we didn't want a session player. We wanted to complete the band. And so we said, okay, well, we'll keep going for a while and see what we can find. And that there was one last guy on the list. And after that, there was no more to audition. And it was Lee. And we went down to Shepperton Film Studios, auditioned Lee, and he'd been given a tape of a few of the demos of the songs. And the first one we played was I Don't Know. And as soon as he began playing, Randy and I looked at each other and thought, oh, here he is. Where have you been? You know, this is the guy. and yeah, I remember Randy got all excited. We have our band. You know, it's like, yay. So I remember we went out for Chinese that night in Celebration, and the Chinese restaurant was called Lee Ho Fook's. With Lee. Yeah.
No, that's crazy. Yeah, that would I would love to have been a fly on the wall there when you guys finally realized this is it.
Oh yeah. Lee just let rip. You know, he was what we needed, what we wanted. He had the fire, aggression, but class and taste, and he was sort of quite Bonham-ish. You know, Bonham-esque. Yeah.
Well, the next question, number 8, and I've had Johnny's asked me this question before. He's like, if I wanted to introduce. Well, we were talking about the Van Halen and Randy thing. So if you wanted to introduce someone to Randy, what song would you say? And people in chat were saying, "Oh, Crazy Train." And I always my pick is always the song "Diary of a Madman." There's just something about that song that is that's the one I recommend people listen to first of Randy.
Right.
Then and everything else.
Right. Yeah. I mean, the Crazy Train is a great sort of. Credible pop song. Well, it's not pop, but it's radio friendly.
Mm-hmm. Plus, if you watch NFL football, you hear it every Sunday too.
Yeah. I mean, it was a great riff, and Randy and I put that together, and I wrote the lyrics about. Well, we won't go into the Crazy Train thing. We're talking about what song would be a good representation of Randy's playing and his. Yeah, Diary of a Madman's a good one. That came about as Randy was everywhere he went, he'd find a classical guitar teacher, and he was practicing a piece called Etude that his tutor had given him, and he was turning that into an intro for a song. So it was an embellishment or an elaboration of the etude exercise that he was doing. And I'd already named the album Diary of a Madman, but we didn't have a title song. We didn't have a song called Diary of a Madman. You know? So when we started, Ozzy wasn't at the rehearsals and at the writing sessions a lot. He was dealing with personal issues at that time, and was often not there. So that day when we started Diary was it was just Randy and me and Lee. And once we started to get into it, because it had weird timings and changes, and I thought it's a bit nuts. So this might be good for as the title track, Diary of a Madman. So we worked it up. Lee sang some bits because Lee was quite a good singer. He had a mic on his drum kit, and he sang some rough ideas of where the vocal line would fall. And when Ozzy came back, he didn't like what we'd done, because I think just because he didn't really understand it musically, or what to do, or where the vocal would go and what it would do, sort of thing, And he said, I remember his words. He said, "Who do you think I am, Frank fucking Zappa?" But when Lee sang him some bits of like, this is where the vocal would go, and then I wrote the lyrics. It was, an ideal track, really, as the title track, because it is. It's just got that air about it of being a little nuts, and but it's a good example of Randy's approach to writing and playing, and the choral bits in it, the choirs and all that. People tend to think because Randy was into classical music and that was his idea, but it was mine. It was even the music that we came on stage to, that Ozzy still uses to this day, is Carmina Burana, and I just loved that piece of music. Okay, and Lou Clark, who was the string arranger for ELO, he came down to our rehearsal because ELO was on Jet Records as well, and he came down to our rehearsal, and I just gave him, in those days it was tapes, I just gave him a cassette tape of Carmina Burana, and I said, Lou, just have a listen to this and just think Carmina Burana for Diary of a Madman, and that's what he came up with, and it worked fine. It was really good, and after Lee and I had gone, I remember Patsy, that worked in the Jet Records office, phoned me up, and she said, "Oh, Ozzy and Sharon want to know what that piece of classical music is that you chose for him to come on stage to." I was not in the mood, and I just said, "It's called Go Fuck Yourself," and I hung up.
We won't get into that, but they deserve it.
Right. I'll make Amanda blush. Sorry.
As far as a diary goes, when I heard it, I learned the introduction, but what stuck out to me was your bass, because the timing,
really?
the dun dun.
Right.
Dun,
Yeah.
That is what stuck me. The intro just caught me off guard because I wasn't expecting that, but then I learned that, and I was like, man, the bass is like dun 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 dun. I thought, wow, that is so. And it was. I always tell people, that's a song you got to listen to. You can hear the tightness of the band for one. You can hear the skill of the band for two. Those three guys, you, Lee, and Randy. And I have always said that's the first one you should. If you've never listened to Randy or Ozzy, or early Ozzy, anyhow, that's what you need to hear. Yeah,
I'd go with that.
It's just,
it's
your bass line. Matter of fact, I just listened to it today in the car on the way back from the store. I thought, okay, well, we're going to be talking tonight, so I put it back on. And again, I'm on the steering wheel, I'm going dun 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 dun.
Well, that's a lot of precision too.
Oh, was that on that one?
Yeah. I did the whole album with that bass. That bass is only on one track of the first album, the Blizzard of Oz album, the first one. I used that 61 precision on Goodbye to Romance, and the rest is the EB3.
Well, we don't have to ask the next one because we already went over that. So we get into number. It was you guys working together. Did it click right away, or?
Oh, right. Yeah. Sure.
So, as much as I don't want to get away from the Randy thing, but I do want to add. I know you worked with Bark at the Moon too, right?
Yep.
Okay. What was it like? What was the difference between Randy and Jake?
I thought that Jake did an admirable job of filling those hard to fill shoes that Randy had left behind. That's a hard act to follow. But I thought that Jake did a really good job of being himself, not doing the Randy thing note for note, but still doing his interpretation of it and still playing the parts right of all those songs, and being an extension of, you know, those first two albums into a new, slightly different direction. And Jake and I sort of worked in a similar way to how Randy and I had worked. You know, we'd sit on chairs opposite each other, and he'd have a riff, and I'd make suggestions, and we'd turn things round, and then I'd write lyrics to them, and it was a similar sort of situation. Just he's a great player too. Brilliant player.
Well, I got a real quick story. I was in the union crew for concerts, and I ended up being one of the loaders. So, you know, we were the first ones done in the morning unloading the trucks. We never left the semi, just shoved the stuff back for everybody else. And
Right.
then at the end of the show, we were the last ones because everybody was bringing stuff in we were putting in. But I got to it was Badlands, their first tour, and they were opening. They were an opening act, and they came there, and I, you know, got to talk to Jake and Ray, and we were sitting there, and I talked to them over lunch for probably an hour, and then they went to go sound check, and so Jake's staying there, and I mean, I was 100 pounds less, had long hair, and played in a metal band anyhow, but Jake hands me his white Charvel, which is in the Bark at the Moon video. He goes, "Here, go ahead and play something. I want to go out and hear it outside, you know, out and by the soundboard."
Right.
Well, Badlands had just come out. I didn't know any of their stuff. I turned around and said, the only thing I know is, you know, Bark at the Moon. So I'm on stage with Badlands playing Bark at the Moon, and, you know, I was like, wow. When it was done, you know, he's giving a thumbs up and everything back there because he had him adjusting the sound stuff. He comes back up and goes, "Hey, it wasn't bad. You played it wrong." He said, "But it wasn't bad." That's exactly how he said. And I ended up spending about four or 5 hours with him and Ray on the bus, and we just sat there like you just said, sitting across from each other, playing guitars, talking, and it was a great time. Yeah, but it was funny. He's like, "Don't feel bad." He said, "Zach plays it wrong too." So. I was like, okay, well, what? All right, thanks.
Yeah, Ray Gillen was a nice guy too. It was just, it was a shame that he went like he did.
Yeah, it was. Okay, so we are down to number 13. Here's one. If you can go back to any one of your old bands and redo just one song that since you've done it, you thought, man, if I'd have done this, what would it have been? You know?
Oh, dear. That is a tough one. That is a tough one. I've done an awful lot of songs. I don't know if... I don't know. Throw a crap one at me, what you thought was crap.
Actually, I don't have one. To be honest with you, I don't. I'm not just saying that. You can ask my wife.
Oh, okay. I don't know. I did read that question because Amanda sent them to me. Thank you, Amanda. And but you know, I couldn't think of one then, and I can't think of one now. But there might be one. You know, it's one of those things where, you know, tomorrow it might just pop into my head. Oh, I should have said that. You know, I can't think of one straight off, but
if that's the case, you have my cell phone number. Just text me the answer.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, that was, you know. I brought that question.
Well, I suppose if I thought of something, I could always give you a call or something, and you could plonk
that'll work.
Edit it in or something.
Yeah, if you have the paper, my number should be on top of it. It should do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So then the last one for me is what string brand do you use, and how do you like your bass set up?
Well, the strings I've used since 1972. When I bought that 61 Precision, I remember playing it in the shop, and I said to the guy in the shop, I walked it was, you know where Denmark Street is in London? It's the famous guitar shop street. Yeah. I went into Orange Music, and they had this, the 61 Precision hanging on the wall. It was £135, which was a bit of a chunk of dough back in 1972. But it was, and I said to the guy, I like these strings, what are they? And he said, oh, they're piccato. And I thought, oh, okay. So I got some piccato, and I got a string deal with piccato, and I've used piccato since 1972.
Wow.
I still do. Yeah, yeah. Just 45s to 105s, standard gauge set. But yeah, they've been really good quality strings. And I don't think they're that common in America, though. Or
I've never seen.
I know when I first joined Rainbow, and Ritchie said to me, "What sort of strings do you use?" And I said piccato, thinking that he might say, "Oh, I've never heard of them." He said, "Yeah, so do I." And he used piccato. Yeah, Ritchie used piccato strings.
So on your setup, do you like the as close as can be, or do you what I call normal? As close as is comfortable without being rattly or getting any fret buzz and that sort of thing. So yeah, as close as comfortably and practical as you can get. Yeah. Did you ever try flat wound strings?
Yeah, my first basses and back in the 60s, most bass strings were flat wounds in those days.
Yeah, I put a set on for a guy probably about 4 or 5 months ago, and he said he'd always wanted to try them, but never did. So he bought a set, and I worked on the bass for him, put him on him, and he called me up about a week later and said, I think I'm deciding I'm going to play flat wounds from now on. So.
Right. Well, that song on Diary of a Madman called "Flying High Again."
Yeah.
No, well, that's a Hofner bass, a Hofner Beatle bass.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, because I remember I tried various basses on that track, and it just didn't sound right or feel right. And I thought, well, I had the Hofner down there with me at Ridge Farm Studios, and I thought I'll try that, and it was perfect for it. And I thought, yep, do that, and that had flat wounds in it.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now.
Sorry. Oh, okay.
I'm on your site looking through the bass. Yeah. I see it. It's a '63 Hofner violin bass. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a '63, and that's I didn't know a lot about Hofner basses at the time of buying that. I walked into a shop in Denmark Street in 1977. And I thought, I haven't got a Beatle bass. I should have one. And it was £90. And I just bought it. And I mean, it could have been a 64 or 65 or 66. They did them because the Beatles were so, influential at the time. Mm-hmm. But that one's a 63. And it's the same year as the one that McCartney used. So it's an exact replica of his, which is the desirable one. I didn't know it at the time. I just bought it for 90 quid, and I thought, now I've got a Beatles bass. But it was
he just got that back too.
Yeah.
It had been missing since 1970 or something like that, and he just got it back. Yeah.
Oh, is that the other one? The one they call the cavern bass, with the one with the two close pickups on it? That went missing.
I'm not sure.
Yes, it is. It is. It's that one. Yeah, 'cause that's the one he used in Revolution and that stuff. In the when the Beatles are filmed with the audience around them, and that's that one. Yeah, that was the '61 Cavern one, the one because he played it at the Cavern, and he had it all those years. I think he had it refinished as well, but that didn't matter because it was his. It doesn't matter if he painted it with spots and stripes, it'll be still his. But I've got one of those as well. They are really rare. The early Cavern bass with the close pickups. They're valuable, and there's one on my site. Can you see it?
I see the '61 Hofner.
Yep.
Cavern bass. It's got the has a neck pickup and like a middle pickup. There's no bridge.
Yeah, it's got, instead of a bridge pickup, it's got the two pickups sort of closer to the neck.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like the one McCartney had in early Beatle days when he was at the Cavern.
Mm-hmm.
I think he bought it in Hamburg because Hofner's German. But, that was a great bass sound that he had on those early Beatle records. Very simple playing because he was another guitarist that turned bass.
That happens a lot. That does. That happens a lot. So
Amanda and I are doing some stuff together soon with Gary Moore's son, Jack. The last time,
cool. I was just going to say, we talked about your past. What do you have planned for the future?
Yeah. Well, at present, currently, I'm recording another Hoochie Coochie Men album. Cool. I did one with John Lord good few years ago, but we were going to do another studio album because how all that came about was John Lord came out to Australia and he was going to play at the Sydney Opera House, a classical performance, and he injured his thumb and he couldn't play classical piano, but he could play Hammond organ. So we did some shows together as the Hoochie Coochie Men because I had a little blues band called the Hoochie Coochie Men. And John sat in with us and we did it, and it was filmed as a DVD of us at the Basement, which is a gig, was a club in Sydney, and eventually got that was in about, I think that was about 2003, and then later, a year or two later, I said, well, let's do a studio album. So we did the studio album called Danger, White Men Dancing. That was just nicely titled. And then I phoned John again, and I said, and his wife answered the phone, and she said, "Oh," I said, is John there? I said, we're thinking about doing another Hoochie Coochie Man album. She said, "Oh yeah, do one. We like that." So it got received very well, the Danger White Men Dancing album. So we're going to do another studio album, and then John was diagnosed with stomach cancer and he'd gone the next year. So that was that. So but I'm doing that album now, and it'll have other guests and things. It's still Rob Grosser on drums and his studio that I work at, and it'll be Tim Gaze on guitar, who was on the other Hoochie album with John Lord. Keyboard player, I think it might be Ben Waters. Are you familiar with Ben Waters?
No, I'm not. No.
No, okay. He's quite a well-known English, authentic sort of blues player, and he's played with the Stones and lots of sort of high-profile people. So he's quite well known over there. Yeah, so we might get him on some tracks and some other guests. So. Some original material and a couple of covers, like blues standards. Well, they're not really standards even. They're songs that I'd wanted to do for quite a while. Freddie King, Albert King, influences, So, but yeah, Amanda and I and Jack Moore are going to do a project, and we'll have some nice guests on it, like Joe Bonamassa, and we're still looking at drummers and keyboard players, and Neil Carter from the Gary Moore Band has given a thumbs up, so he'll probably do some tracks.
Sweet.
Yeah.
I think Johnny's available to do some tracks for you.
Yeah.
What do you do, Johnny?
You guys can come back and you guys can talk and promote it.
Okay, sure.
I play guitar like everybody. I haven't switched to bass yet.
Right.
But I've been playing guitar for years and years and years. I kind of like drop this name all the time on my shows. I used to live with Desmond Child.
Oh, okay.
You know who he is? The songwriter?
Yeah.
Producer? He did all the hits with Bon Jovi, Aerosmith. Did a lot of stuff with Kiss.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Anyway, he was my manager at one point, years and years ago,
okay.
and I used to live in his house, and so I've done.
Where was that?
That was in Miami.
Oh, okay. Right.
Miami Beach, Florida.
Right.
So,
Well, the
yes.
gloves were.
yeah. Miami was crazy, man.
Yeah.
It was cool.
That's right.
But you had Crockett and Tubbs running around too, so.
I know. Yeah, but definitely you'll have to. You and Amanda, you guys will have to come back.
Oh, we will. Certainly, we will. Yeah.
I have to add a comment about why Randy dressed the way he did, because he loved Mick Ronson. So Mick Ronson, when he was with David Bowie, dressed like super femme with he was a platinum spider from Mars. So he had the same hair as Mick Ronson, same
And the same guitar.
Same guitar. Well,
Green Les Paul, yeah.
Yeah, his was white because he didn't want to sand off the entire top. So the Mick Ronson guitar is all sanded off because he thought that the paint ruined the resonation. So.
Yeah, Randy was a big Mick Ronson fan, that's for sure. He sort of modelled himself on that. He looked like it. Yeah.
I just know every picture I ever see with Randy, he's wearing like 3-inch heeled shoes.
Right.
Well, a lot of that is, I think, it's because he was super short, too. At least that's what his sister said.
Well, he was about 5'6", which isn't tall, but he's not like Ronnie was 5'3".
Wow.
Yeah.
Sure.
That the Gates of Babylon song you talked about before, that's one of my favorites. I love that song too.
Yeah. The solo that Ritchie did in that, I thought was just genius. It was such a brilliant solo. And the keyboard intro was all written by David Stone, the keyboard player. And the big sort of majestic middle section was written by David Stone as well. They just bought him out of it. Here's some money, and they just put it down to Ritchie and Ronnie. But David Stone had a hand in writing that song too. But that happens.
What bass did you use for that?
It was an old original early 50s Precision.
Wow.
Yeah, it was like a 54, 55, something like that, with an extra pickup put on it. But I ended up selling that one. And I'd even though I'd used it on that album, and I sold it just as like a second-hand bass. I took it into the guitar shop and sold it and traded it in on something. And I mean, I don't know. It's probably in the hard rock or something like that now. I don't know. I know that's happened to some of my stuff that I sold through guitar shops. It just in those days it wasn't as important, the provenance thing, and as it is nowadays.
Well, if you do sell some, you need to do what Jason Newsted's doing and open a reverb store.
Oh right, yeah. I mean, I had a practice amp that was Jimmy Page's in 1972. And I remember Clive Coulson, who worked for Zeppelin, he lived in the flat below me, and he came up and he said, "Here, Jimmy doesn't want this anymore. He's got a new one. Do you want it?" And it was Jimmy Page's practice out with Led Zeppelin stenciled on it, and I threw it away.
Oh, my God.
Oh, no.
Somebody should have hit me in the head with it. But, but people didn't think of that stuff so much then. I remember when I worked with Stan Webb with Chicken Shack, he had a white Gibson Firebird that had been Jimi Hendrix's, and he got it for £200. And after he did use it for a while, and after a little while, he did have a '59 Les Paul Standard, Black Peter Green's, the original. So that was his main guitar, and he ended up selling the Firebird, and it had been Jimi Hendrix's, then Stan Webb's, and he just sold it for whatever was the going rate at the time. It was crazy now, but at the time people weren't thinking about that provenance.
Well, look at
collectability and all that.
Eddie's guitar from the Jump video that went for what, almost $4 million?
I know.
That, 3.9.
The Hot for Teacher video.
Hot for Teacher. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I meant.
No, the one from the Jump video is priceless, man. That one.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
I think
weird
funny
how
'cause
that
I'm both
stuff.
of you.
What's that?
I'm Johnny and Ron. Like, you're super Van Halen and you're super Randy, but I'm
Yeah.
I'm both.
She's a combination of both of us, right?
Yeah.
There you go. That's perfect.
Great.
Well, that was your main reason for starting to play, wasn't it, Amanda? It was Randy and Eddie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know Bob knows this whole story. My uncle gave my brother Wizard of Oz and Van Halen 1 on the same day. And growing up, I had to do whatever my brother did. So I would sneak into his room and steal his band shirts, and he'd get really mad at me. And then I would also sneak into his room and take all of his CDs. So one day, of course, I snuck into his room, and he got Van Halen 1 and Blizzard of Oz, and I think it was like my uncle had written on the CD, and so I just remember like looking at this like Blizzard of Oz, and it just, that was it. That was enough for me. Begged for a guitar, and here we are.
And you were, what, 11 then?
I was 11 years old, yeah. I remember it was like a couple of months before I turned 12. And then I got an acoustic guitar, and I learned classical on it first, and blues, and the rest is history. So.
She's 15 now.
Yes, I'm a full 15. I have my Blizzard of Oz poster here, the original one.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that came with the album, didn't it? That was in with the vinyl album.
I'm not sure. But yeah, I don't know where I got that. I think I got it at a store.
Oh, okay. Oh, you're lucky to have that, yeah, because an original one like that is good.
That's nice. Real nice. Want to sell it?
No. I have not seen a single one.
Look at the order. Look at the order on the how we are on the poster as well. Randy first. He went first. Then Lee. He's gone. Ozzy's next, by the look of it.
And Bob's right here. It's hard to
Wow.
There we go. It's really far away. Yes.
Cool.
There you go. Mm-hmm. Okay, I have a question for you that
For
I don't
me?
think I've heard. Yes. No one asked this question. I had to think of a good one. Okay. So you obviously were in Widowmaker, and that was, from what I'm gauging, your first band that you wrote lyrics for or were writing for.
Yeah.
And obviously the second band was Blizzard of Oz. So do you feel that the tone of the band, I know it's a mixture of obviously Randy playing classical and Ozzy coming out of Sabbath. Do you feel that the sound was shaped around the fact that Ozzy was in the band coming out of Sabbath? So some of it has sort of, darkness to it. Or do you feel like it was more based off of how you write on your own? Because I feel like that was the first time you were writing stuff that you wanted to write, with your mom sort of being the psychic, well, her being the psychic, and then bringing in you being a Buddhist, and all of that mixed together. Do you feel like it was more of your lyrics meeting Randy, or bringing in that tone of who Ozzy was?
Great question.
Yeah, it is a good question. I'd say probably a combination of all of that, because if you look at Randy, he was such a great player, an innovator, and definitely blowing the doors off the guitar world. And he hadn't been in the sort of ideal environment for him to bring that out of him until he got with Lee and Ozzy and myself. There's Lee from Uriah Heep, a heavy rock band, Ozzy from Sabbath, a heavy rock band, and I'd come from Rainbow, a heavy rock band. So my contribution, as in the lyrics and the music with Randy, we obviously were either partially consciously aware of the Ozzy connection and Black Sabbath, or maybe even subconsciously. But we were aware that this stuff has to be in a certain vein for the fans of, you know, Uriah Heep, for Rainbow, for Ozzy's Black Sabbath. You know, it has to be in a certain sort of category. So we couldn't write bubblegum pop songs or whatever. And the thing is, we didn't try to write or record anything that would be a hit record or radio friendly for the sake of what was in vogue or what was fashionable at the time. You know, we just did what flowed naturally. You know, Randy played a certain way, I played a certain way, and I was aware that for Ozzy, there were certain style of lyrics that would be ideal for him, or that would suit his image and his, you know, what he'd come from. But, you know, as a lyricist, in that, you know, I was out of necessity wearing the lyricist hat, you know, as the old saying, necessity is the mother of invention. And it was, you know, so I had to, if we were going to keep the band, you know, self-sufficient and write all our own stuff and keep it under our roof, then I would have to be the lyricist. And I was very aware of what not to write. I didn't want, you know, I love you, baby, or don't leave me, baby, and all the usual cliche stuff. I mean, there's so many songs like that, you know. It's yeah, we get it, you know. So, and I had a fairly philosophical way of looking at things anyway, because of I'd read a lot of different schools of thought and philosophy, and a lot on Buddhism, and, you know, so I wanted some of the songs to be at least philosophical, you know. Sometimes Ozzy would come up with a title like Mr. Crowley, and I thought, well, it's got to be about Aleister Crowley, but I don't want to be pro-Satanist or pro-darkness or that sort of thing. So I wrote it in a way of, Crowley, what the fuck were you thinking? Like that, you know, what, Mr. Crowley, what went on in your head? You know, what were you thinking? You know, so yeah, so and things like I Don't Know was from actual situations that Ozzy had told me about. He said when he was in Sabbath, he said because he was in a band called Black Sabbath, people used to come up to them, or fans, or they'd come to their hotel, or thinking that they had the answers to things, or that they were sort of, I don't know. I remember one story Ozzy told me they heard a kerfuffle in the hotel corridor, and they went out of their rooms, and down the end was all these fans in robes and with black candles, and they were having some sort of mass. And he said they all went down there, blew their candles out, and sang happy birthday to them. But that was the sort of stuff that Ozzy was attracting from being in Black Sabbath, you know. So the I Don't Know thing was just my way of saying this is you know, what Ozzy was saying. You know, don't ask me. I don't know. What's the future of mankind? You know, how should I know? I got left behind. You know?
That's golden stories right there, man. Golden stories.
Yeah.
Thank you, Bob.
Oh, no, you're welcome.
I have one more question.
Yeah.
I know I've heard about the rehearsal tapes.
Oh, yes.
Are those ever going to come out?
I don't know. I'd love to see them out there, you know.
I would love to hear them.
Yeah. I remember several years ago when there was a couple of guys came here and they wanted to make a movie about Randy. And Margolis and Klein, two guys from LA. And the movie didn't happen. They brought out a book, but the movie didn't happen. For whatever reason. I think the Rhoads family ended up in legal battles with them, and so it didn't happen. But I remember when Andrew Klein came to my house and I played him some of those, and he was just, you know, mouth open. He said, oh, I still remember his words. He said, people would just shit if they could hear this. Well, it's just, I didn't record them for any other reason other than the old famous last words of when you're doing a song and you have a new piece in it, or you change something. Oh yeah, we'll do that tomorrow. We'll remember it.
Yep.
But you don't always remember it. What was that piece again? How did it go? What did we say? What did we do? So I recorded everything, and that's why I have those tapes. It was just out of, for convenience of, okay, here's what we did yesterday. Let's have a listen. Oh yeah, then let's change this bit. But some of that stuff's on the tape as well, So there are little bits of different versions of parts of the songs, and it's there's, for me, even some stuff where Lee is singing the vocal melody to like "Flying High Again" and things like that he came up with,
Mm-hmm.
So
I would.
Interesting, and the quality is just it's like a boombox with a condenser mic in a rehearsal room. So, but it's pretty clear. You can hear everything we're playing. And
I personally would give anything to hear that, and I'm sure.
If you go onto my website, there's little snippets of it.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I heard them today.
Yeah.
Yeah. I heard them, Ron.
News or something like that, is it?
But
is it under the heading of news or something on my site?
It's under. Is it news or audio? Where was it? Somewhere.
Ron, I'll send it to you.
I keep telling Johnny that.
Yeah, you've heard it, Amanda, haven't you?
Yeah, I heard the Flying High Again one not too long ago, and I thought, why wasn't Lee the singer? This is good.
Yeah, the Blizzard of Lee.
But I've told Johnny that, with all the time that Eddie was in 5150 and had everything rolling,
yeah,
there's got to be those tapes there too. And I know the diehard Van Halen's fan would give anything to hear that stuff too. So.
Oh yeah,
there are the tapes, but 3 years ago, Wolfgang said he had to go through all of it. Something about the original computer everything was on crashed. Johnny, you know this.
That's something Edward said years ago. Was they cataloged, and again, this the Van Halen stuff. They used to catalog all his recordings, and then it got corrupted, and so they didn't know like what was on all the tapes, and those tapes you have to bake. You have to put it in an oven to make them so you could actually listen to them. And I talked about this today. I do a Van Halen show as well, and I talked about some of this. But anyway, I found the page on your website.
Okay. Yeah, it's just snippets because legally I can't play the whole thing. It's just I think 40 seconds or 45 seconds is the limit. So, but you can hear the quality, and it's certainly you can hear what we're doing. And
yeah, there's like 4 snippets.
Yeah,
Blizzard of Oz and Holy Grail. Yeah.
Man.
Yeah.
Very cool.
I've got about 8 hours of that stuff.
Oh, don't torture me anymore, Bob. I would fly to Australia to hear that.
Amanda's going to.
Well.
Right? Eventually.
Yeah.
Well, I just want to thank you again for doing this, and I want you to know that in my eyes, you are an icon. You really are.
You.
I didn't want you to think I just wanted to talk to you about Randy, because that's not true. I mean, because like I said, I love the Rainbow stuff. It's just, to me, you're one of the top ones, and you always have been. Like I said, I'm driving on the car home, doing the bass for dun. So yeah, and if you do come up with a song that you think maybe you could have done better, text me. Let me know what it is.
Yeah,
I'd be interested.
I'll think about that. Yeah.
That would be very interesting.
I don't think the questions are inappropriate, Ron, because I mean, in retrospect, it's like, at least with Blizzard of Oz, Ozzy really wasn't there, so the only people focused on the music is Randy and Bob, and Randy hasn't been here for how many years now? So it's sort of like
42.
the only person you can ask these questions to is Bob.
One thing that does make me upset at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame here in Ohio is they waited so long to put Randy in there that his mother had passed.
Oh,
and she never got to see that. So he should have been in that a long time ago.
She was so proud of Randy and what he'd done, and there's a story in my book about how Randy brought home some music to his mum, because she was a music teacher. She'd been a musician all her life, and she opened up the School of Music, Musonia, and he brought home some, I think, recorded stuff of Quiet Riot. And, it was still Randy, and it was still his talent. She said to him, Randy, this really isn't very good. And he went and cried. But when we did the stuff, and he had some tapes, I gave him copies of what I had. So he might have some of it, or somebody might have some of it somewhere, but it's never surfaced. But he played her some of what we were doing, and she said, Randy, this is more like it.
There you go.
And then he cried again, but for a different reason, and there were tears of joy, sort of thing, which is very moving, very, heartfelt. It's just lovely.
That's great.
It's just, I mean, you guys, even including Lee, those first two albums, those are I don't even know what word I'm looking for. In the heavy rock metal era, those two albums are like the keystone. So, and to me, that puts you up there.
Yeah, I mean, it was such an honor for me, and it feels so good to have been a part of something that was so influential and received so well, and that meant so much to so many people. It's what it's all about, really.
I'm still shocked that I'm here talking to you right now. So, but yeah, I mean, I don't even know what. Just thank you, Bob. Thank you for everything.
Oh no, you're more than welcome. It's just one thing that I've always maintained and been mindful of is keeping your feet on the ground and just being a normal person. I mean, it's just it's music, and the reason for music is to make people emote, or to think, or to feel. And it's an honor for me to be able to do that for people. So, and without people's appreciation, I'd be redundant.
Well, I'm glad for everything you've done, and I'm super stoked that you agreed to do this and you're here. So
yeah, it's a pleasure.
I want you to know, your music, again, Rainbow, Ozzy, even Uriah Heep, it's just, I grew up with it. Amanda said Randy and Eddie's what got her started.
Yeah.
What got me started actually in guitar at first was Ace Frehley.
Oh, okay.
Just because of the image,
Right.
Kiss Alive 2 or Kiss Alive. But when I heard Eddie and Randy, I was like, Ace who? Who's these guys?
Yeah.
So.
Well, I have tapes of all those bands too, like Uriah Heep and Rainbow Rehearsals, and a few years ago they did a re-release of Long Live Rock and Roll with some bonus stuff on it, and it was my bonus stuff. It was my rehearsal tapes that I gave them to use. So there's a little bit of Rainbow Rehearsals with that re-release of.
You're killing me, Bob.
Yeah, I got Uriah Heep tapes and tapes with Yngwie and tapes with, you name it. I've got tapes of most of them. They were just sort of rehearsal tapes that I used for my own convenience, so to either remember parts or look at parts to maybe, consider or change or whatever. They were just reference tapes. But, they mean a lot to a lot of people now, I suppose.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, they do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I would do the same thing for years and years and years. I would record everything that I ever did.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, so you can relate.
So I can relate to that, and
Yeah.
There were many times, I'd write a song and come up with it and think, oh, okay, tomorrow I'll get out, and the next day comes, it's like, okay, how did it start?
Yes. Well, see, that's a good example. Oh, I'll remember. Yeah. Well, we'll remember that tomorrow. Famous last words.
Well, I used to carry, I used to carry one of the little micro cassettes with me back in the band days.
Oh, yeah.
And use that. Then I ended up going to the digital voice recorder. Now I just use the cell phone, so.
Right.
Yeah. And I live vlog everything I do. So everything I do is on the internet
for the world to see.
Yeah, except for this show. This show's being recorded.
But yeah,
my phone memory is just all voice memos.
What's that?
My phone memory is only voice memos of just everything that I do.
Oh, okay.
And then I probably have like stacks and stacks of notebooks of lyrics. I kept from day one, from being 13.
You still handwrite lyrics out on paper.
Handwrite lyrics, which good. Bob is the reason why I write lyrics. So there's
wow.
My intro. Yeah.
See, I would come up with an idea for lyrics. Mm-hmm. Or the name of the song, or what. But at one time we had a guy that did most of the lyrics, right? And I would record something. Of course, back then it was cassette. I'd record it on cassette, hand it to him, and say, "I want this song to be about." And then he would come back an hour or two later. How's this? Like, wow, I couldn't do that. I never could. I struggled to write lines until a year or so ago, and I started. Over the years of playing with a bunch of people, I'm getting them back together, and certain people were playing different songs. I got like 42 songs now, and the very first time in my life, I sat down and did a song called Pain, the music for it. And then a couple of days later, I sat down and I started writing a line, and within 10 minutes, I had the whole song written. I never did that before in my life, ever.
Wow.
And I've never done it since, so it was just that one time.
Well, if you've done it once, you can do it again.
I hope so. I do hope so.
Yeah. It's going to be strange for me to be working with Jack Moore, though. It's like the last time I saw Jack, I think that he was a young teenager, because I saw him as a baby and then as a little child, young lad. He was named after Jack Bruce because Jack Bruce was a friend of Gary's. And I think the last time I saw Jack, he would have been probably early teens.
Wow.
At Gary's house. He lived in Hove at the other end of Brighton. I'd left Brighton by then, but when I was working with Gary in 2003 and 2004, I saw Jack, and he was just a teenager then. But what is he, 30-something now, isn't he?
I think he's like 36 or 37 now. Oh,
is he? Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
If I could.
How time flies when you're having fun, eh?
Yeah, I know he's a few years older than me.
Oh, okay. Right.
He's told me he still remembers when you came over to the house.
Right. Oh, good.
He still remembers all of it.
Oh, good.
And anytime you say something funny to me, he's like, classic Bob. So nothing has changed, apparently. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. He's a good player now, though. I had him. I did a tribute to Gary Moore album a couple of years ago, and it was received very well. And I had some great players on it, but I thought I've got to get Jack on it because he was probably how long ago? Maybe 6 years ago, something like that. Yeah, it was about 5 or 6 years ago, and he played on it. But he was just sort of still finding his feet and finding his musical sea legs kind of thing. But he played, it was decent playing. And Gus, his brother, sang on it. And I thought it'd be good to have the Gary Moore family on there. So, but now Jack has come a long way. He's developed more since then. You can see, you know, the direction he's going is going to be really, really good.
He has his dad's vibrato for sure.
Yeah, and, which is a really important aspect of playing. You know, the vibrato is you know, makes it can make a big difference. You know, you can play great notes and have great choice in notes and that, but if the vibrato doesn't deliver it, then it's you know.
Very true.
That's what makes the difference. When people are, you know, if someone's trying to clone somebody else, it's the vibrato, it's the left hand, you could always tell.
Yeah.
He told me a story about when he was growing up, and he'd probably tell the story better, but you know, he'd play guitar and his dad would be home and he'd walk in and sort of give him a really hard time. And so he said I would go to my room and sit in my room and be like, I'm going to show him.
That's it. Adds fuel to the fire. No, that's great.
Yeah. And so he's like, one day I was playing guitar, my dad walked by and he didn't say anything, but he's like, that was enough for me to know I was going somewhere. So.
Yeah. See, sometimes that sort of, you know, I'm going against you kind of thing, or I'm going to criticize you or whatever, can be fuel on the fire. I remember when I was about 16 and I that's all I wanted to do was play. I'm going to be a musician. But I had an office job, you know, it was just sort of, in those days, you couldn't be just a musician. You had to have something else. And I had an office job. And I remember some of the staff and that, you know, they used to say to me things like, yeah, but if you're going to be a musician, what are you going to be doing when you're 30? Because in those days, no rock musicians or pop musicians or even Elvis and the Beatles and all that, everybody was still young. There hadn't been any sort of old pioneers of that sort of stuff. And people were saying to me, yeah, but what are you going to be doing when you're 30? And my attitude was, I'll fucking show them. I'll show them all. And you know, that was fuel on the fire. And sometimes it might seem like, you know, a negative thing to say, but it gets a result.
That's what they call it, reverse psychology.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could see that working.
Yeah. Same with you, Amanda. You know, you've had flack from people saying, you know, what are you doing this? You're a girl and you should be a girl at home rattling pots and pans or doing whatever they tell you should be doing. And I remember speaking to it was at somebody's funeral once, a young girl sax player. And she said, what really, I didn't know her. I just was talking to her at the funeral. And she said, what really gave me spark and made me determined was that people said that I shouldn't be doing it. And that's what spurred her on. You know, it really gave her that sort of I'll show 'em thing. And she became a great sax player.
I was the same way my entire life. My parents are probably going to watch this, but my parents did not want me to be a musician. Right. I was too rebellious for that, and I've always followed music. And then even when I was jumping on whatever tour I could jump on, you know, it's like, well, you're the girl, you don't belong in metal. And so I just sort of, at first, just to get on tours, I would sell merch and then spread the word, actually play guitar. And I would just remember people sort of like scoffing at me all the time, even horrible remarks. But I obviously kept climbing the ladder until people took me seriously, and I wouldn't give up. And anytime someone came at me like, oh, you're a girl, girls don't play metal, I was just like, okay, watch me. Or
well, you know, afford that.
Yeah.
Right? Exactly.
Yeah. And lots of others too. There's many of them.
So many now.
Yeah. But you know, that added fuel to your fire, and it probably served that purpose without you knowing or even thinking about that at the time.
Oh no, it's very apparent to me. It's cynical to not remember. Yes.
Yeah, you gotta. If you love it, do it.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's right.
And it's like you always have to. I'm the type person that anybody can show you something. So it doesn't matter, because when I did teach guitar for a while, and I had a couple students, girl students, and one come in with an attitude that, well, I'm a girl, I'm not gonna be able to play anything. I said the same thing. Lita Ford, Joan Jett.
Yeah.
What do you mean you can't play? And so, yeah, she was always told that girls don't need to be doing this or couldn't do it or whatever. And so, yeah. So she took lessons for about a year. Then she ended up dating a guy, and that was it. Never saw her again after that. Although he took her guitar because she bought one of my Charvels. She bought one of them off of me, and he ended up taking it.
I've always had the attitude of if a man did it, I don't see why I can't do it.
Well, that's right. That's right.
Yeah, very
What
true.
was Michael Jackson's? Jennifer Batten. She's another great. She was a good player. There's lots of them.
Nina Strauss.
Yep.
So yeah, you get into that. That's just.
And some of them are really impressive.
Vixen.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, look at that. That's.
Yeah.
I remember watching an interview with them where they said that whoever they were opening for was an all guy band. They said the band was standing on the side watching them and was impressed and surprised that they were actually playing the instruments. So,
oh wow!
My friend Britt is in that band, Britt Lightning.
Okay.
Yeah, I think she's the main guitarist. Yeah. And she was on the Cactus album that just came out with Bob on it.
Oh,
yeah, that's actually a good album. That Cactus album, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, some good players and some good performances. Well produced, sonically good. Yeah, it's a good album.
Did you ever get into producing, Bob?
Yeah. I've done some producing stuff. Yeah, really, the first Blizzard of Oz album, we produced it. We had Max Norman at Ridge Farm, who was the house engineer, and he was a good enough engineer. Jet Records had put us in with an actual producer, Chris Tangarides.
Mm-hmm.
And after a few days, we thought, do we need a producer? We know what we want. We know what sounds we want. We know how the song should sound. We've got Max there that can do what we ask. He's really cooperative. He's good. He's got his own ideas. We work together, and Chris Tangarides was sort of asked to leave. I mean, it wasn't like you're fired. It wasn't like that, because he was a lovely bloke, Chris Tangarides, and I worked again with him with Gary Moore. And he was always great, but we just thought, no, we don't need it. It's like a spare wheel, So we produced that first album. We all knew what we wanted and how it should sound, and Max worked with us, and we got and Max set up a producing career out of doing those first couple of albums, because on Diary of a Madman, it was my suggestion. I said, well, seeing Max as doing this with us again, and he's going to be house engineer, let's give him a production credit. So he got his production credit, and then I didn't. I was left off, and so was Lee. We got songwriting credits on that album, and that was all.
Yeah,
we didn't get performance. Yeah, we didn't get performance credits, and we didn't get co-production credits.
I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole, but
no. we all know.
The stories have been out, and let me just say, you guys were wronged, very bad. You guys were. Yeah, I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, well, that's why when the first suggestions of let's get rid of Lee and get Tommy Aldridge in, I wouldn't agree to it. It wasn't out of loyalty to Lee or anything like that. I couldn't agree to do something that I thought was wrong, so, and I wouldn't. So in the end, they got rid of both of us, and then 6 weeks later, they asked me back. That was how they got rid of Lee. Originally, that third album I was supposed to come back and do it in '82 with Randy and Ozzy and Tommy Aldridge. But Randy was killed in the March of '82, and so that third album was put on hold, and I ended up doing it the following year in '83 with Jake, and that was Bark at the Moon. Yep.
In the video for that, how was that filming the video for that song?
Bark at the Moon?
Yeah.
I think it was done at a defunct sort of, I think it used to be a nut house. I think it was. I think it was an asylum, mental asylum but it wasn't functioning. It was just sort of derelict, and it was filmed there. But really, by then, it wasn't really a band feel or a band situation. It was, it was being promoted as the Ozzy show or the Ozzy and Jake show by then, because they promoted a lot of Jake just to take people's minds off the loss of Randy or the absence of Randy. So
that was with Kramer was a drummer, right, in the video?
Yeah. By that, yeah. Tommy had played on it. Tommy Aldridge had done the album, but he. The thing is, I didn't really understand how that worked either, because Tommy his forte wasn't the studio. His forte was live. He was great live. Mm-hmm. And in the studio, he'd always had, I don't know, issues or it was he had it didn't flow in the studio like it did live with Tommy. He seemed to be I don't know, affected by the situation of being scrutinized and being recorded, and it didn't work as well as when he was on live and just let off the leash. but at the end of the recording, instead of keeping Tommy, who was on the album, they got rid of him. It was like shutting the gate after the horse had bolted. So they got rid of Tommy, then got Carl went in. That didn't work, and they got Tommy back. So,
yeah,
it wasn't my place to sort of reason why. It was just to get on, do it, put your head down, and get on with it. Which I did.
Was shooting the video fun for that?
It was okay, It wasn't one of those memorable moments of wow, this is great, It was all right.
I always wondered how long it took for them to put the makeup on Ozzy and the hair and all that stuff.
Oh, that was hours. That was hours. I've got photographs. I think they're in my book.
Oh, you're killing me.
The gradual process of the Ozzy getting his makeup on. For the yeah, thank you. Well done.
I know what I'm buying tomorrow.
I knew it would come up.
What a gal. Thank you.
Does that have the answer to SATO in there too?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
It does.
Strange Voyage. I read the book.
Yeah. Yeah, I originally named that song Strange Voyage. It was based on a Buddhist doctrine called the ship to sail across the sea of suffering. And when I wrote the lyrics, it was about that, Ichiban and Sanzen, which is a Buddhist term about life and the universe and that sort of thing. So it was a subtle way of getting it in there, but they changed it to SATO after I'd gone.
Well, I'll be buying the book tomorrow.
Oh, good. Yeah. And if you have any, questions or comments or whatever, just get in touch. Just get my email. You got my email address?
No, I don't.
Amanda does, and yeah.
Can she send it to me?
Of course, or you can send it direct, whatever. Just if you have my email address, you can.
All right. If you
it's 188, just so you know.
What?
I don't know if we can.
Oh,
the photographs of the getting the makeup on. Yeah.
page 88. Okay.
188.
Oh,
188.
188.
Yeah.
I remember. I'm a big fan of the old Universal monster movies, and I remember them talking about how long it used to take them to do Lon Chaney Jr.'s makeup for the Wolfman.
Oh yeah.
I thought, man, wonder if Ozzy had to sit there for hours and have that done too.
Yeah.
Oh well, that was a good video. I like that video.
Uh-huh. Oh yeah. I mean, it worked well. Yeah.
I wish the video thing was more popular when Blizzard came out, though. That would have been.
Yeah.
That would have been great.
If they'd had us on film, it would have been. I'm surprised actually that Jet Records didn't film the concert that they came to record. They recorded us live and had a mobile studio out the back of the gig. Recorded the whole show. 2 of the tracks are on, the tribute album.
Yeah.
The tribute to Randy Rhoads album. There was 2 of the tracks from that night on that. So and Lee and I didn't even get credited on it or anything. Nothing. It was just, it made it look like it was Rudy and Tommy, but I think it was No Bone Movies and it might have been Goodbye to Romance. I'm not sure. I think it might have been those 2 because they didn't do them live with the new band, and whatever 2 tracks it was that they didn't do live, they took it from the show that they recorded from us because we played all the songs.
I was telling Johnny before you guys got on. I'll show you this actually made me mad. Hold on.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. By the way, he can't hear us, but Bob. Ron's a huge fan, so he's probably extremely nervous right now talking to you. Just like he talks about you all the time.
Oh, my daughter got this for me.
Yeah.
My daughter got this for me for my birthday.
Oh, right.
It's the picture album. Okay.
Yeah.
I was all excited. I opened it up. I was like, yeah, look at that. It's it's got that on the back, this on the front.
Yeah.
And then the very next thing I saw was this, and this actually pissed me off.
Oh yeah.
I told Johnny, I said, you know what? I said, those 2 guys had nothing to do with this album whatsoever. And and it lists it. Not only does it show them, but it's got them listed like they're on here.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, that's how it was when it first came out.
It just, I went from being happy.
You imagine how we felt when we saw that at
yeah.
first. Lee and I were just sick to the stomach.
I don't blame you.
It was like somebody just whacked us in the solar plexus with a sledgehammer.
I opened this up for my daughter, and I was all happy, and I was like, yeah.
Until you saw that.
Yep. Then I was like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
But, like I said, I'm on your guys' side.
Right. Thank you.
Because fair is fair, and what's right is right. That's how it should be.
Yeah. That should have been changed years and years and years ago.
Yeah, I was just telling Johnny that before we started, before you guys entered.
Yeah.
So.
Mm-hmm. I know Tommy Aldrich didn't like the idea of being credited to something that he hadn't done. I don't know about Rudy. I mean,
who would? What kind of person would? Oh yeah, well, I did that. Well, no, you didn't. And if people know you didn't do it, then you even look like a bigger jerk. Yeah. So I'm the type person that fair is fair and what's right is right, and that's how it should be.
Yeah, me too. And I'm always upfront in owning up or admitting to things as well. Like if people say to me, "Why did you leave Ozzy?" I just say, "Because I was asked to."
It's sad. It's sad, but funny that you answered that.
I didn't leave. I was told to. but then I was asked back six weeks later. So,
Oh well, I just want you to know.
What's that?
Ron, did I send you my uncle's photos?
Yeah, you sent me 4 photos. Yes.
Okay.
And
yeah,
I
in
love
between
them.
that window that Bob was gone is when my uncle photographed. Awesome.
Yeah, your uncle photographed us with Widowmaker too, didn't he?
No, that was Michael and Mark's. He was.
Oh, was that okay? Sorry, I thought.
Yeah, he was a Green.
Confused. Right. Okay. Right.
Chief Jackson. Yeah.
Yeah, your uncle must have like thousands of photographs of so many acts, huh?
So many people. Unfortunately, with the Blizzard of Oz shots, he told me that was about the year that they really pushed the 3-song rule. So he doesn't have many photos, but just the fact that he had them. And then he told me he forgot that he did it, which I'm like, how do you forget? And then they got lost. And he's like, I haven't pulled these out since 1981, 82.
Right.
So, yeah, just the fact that he has them is amazing. But yeah, he has hundreds.
Like I promised you, I've never showed them to anybody. It's like, it's hey, I got you.
I posted a couple of Randy, and I know that Kathy has reposted them, because it's like, it's either that or it sits in a box, and you don't want to do that. Yeah.
Johnny and I did a show on Randy, and then I know for a fact that Kathy and her husband watched it because I got an email from him. So
I know my uncle watched it because I think I was going to see Joe Bonamassa. He was playing with Glenn Hughes that night, and I remember he called me on the phone, and I'm waiting outside the whiskey, and I'm like, why is my uncle calling me? He rarely calls me out of the blue, and he's like, this guy was talking about Randy Rhoads. And I'm like, you would call me about this out of the blue. So it made me laugh. I'm like, okay, well, I'm going into a show right now. That's actually how I ended up meeting Bob, which is ironic. So
yeah, I'd done that. I'd done something for Cleopatra Records. I'd played on a track. Actually, I played on several tracks. And that's Carmine Apice's record label as well. I did some stuff for Carmine too. And whoever it was, what do you remember his name? The guy from Cleopatra?
It was Brian, he's the president, and then Nick, who's the VP. He was the one who, gave me his card, and then Brian gave me his information. So that was purely luck, synergy. Listening to my instinct. I was like, I should go upstairs. I was so sick that day. So sick. And I was going to leave. And I was like, something tells me to go upstairs. So that was the same day that Jack wrote me. And I had no idea you played for Gary. And he was like, oh, we should get Bob to play with us. I'm like, who's Bob? Who? He's like, Bob Daisley. What planet am I on? Yeah. And then I met Cleopatra, which was just like out of the blue. And the guy walked up to me and he's like, something tells me I should be talking to you. And I was like, this is weird, but okay. I was real with it. So yeah. And then
he gave you my details.
Because Jack hadn't talked to you since 2003, which is when I picked up.
That's right. Yeah.
So yeah, that's all ironic. And I'm like Ron, where, Bob calls me on the phone. And I'm just like, yeah.
Well, you got my number now, Bob, so you go ahead and call.
Sure.
Clearly not there.
Actually, I'll make it. It's not. I had the questions printed out, and I can't see your number on here. Just give it to me, and I'll write it down. What is it? You can edit.
You can edit this, right, Johnny?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
It's
more work for me.
Yeah.
Your email's already on the screen. Just put your number on there.
Got it.
So there you go. But again, if you come up with that song, you think that maybe you could have redone it better.
Yeah, I will.
Yeah, just send me a text.
Yeah.
Leave the phone number in there. I forgot.
What's that?
Oh no.
What's
your address, Ron?
Well, it's funny because Johnny said when I put my email up there that I was going to start getting slammed with emails from doing it, because I've been on the show now with him for over a year, and I've only got like four emails from people in the whole time. I was like, okay, well.
Were they all my uncles?
No, just one. One was from him. Yeah.
Oh, okay. He has an email now?
He sent me something.
Oh my gosh. When I first started going through all of his photos, it was like, I don't even know if he like knew how to use the internet. So this is completely unheard of. I saw he has an Instagram the other day. He doesn't even follow me. He follows Johnny. I'm like, what? I thought we were friends. So yeah.
Well, that's how we met, right? Your uncle was watching my show or something.
And he's like, you really got to watch this guy. Please, come on. And out of everyone in my family, my uncle, if he tells me to do it, I'm like, every day I sit down, I'm like, yeah, you got me into rock and roll. Okay, what do you want? So I'm like, okay, yeah, I'll watch it. And then here we are. I'm on the show. So I've been on the show multiple times. So
yeah.
I wouldn't suggest that you give your number out, Amanda.
No. I have enough text messages as it is. I think I have like 112 unread, and I'm never gonna get to them. Never. They're probably all spam and Lord knows what else. But yeah. No phone numbers here, because then I'll get too many orders that I can't keep up with.
Oh, that's right. You paint guitars to order too, don't you? And amps.
Anderton's just released my amp. They finally got it. The one from NAMM, which Johnny, you saw that in person.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, we all did. He was streaming live when we saw it.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. I forgot my uncle watched that too. I'm like texting him. He's like, oh, no, I'll watch it later. And I'm like, oh, cool.
A supportive uncle.
Yes. He didn't know I was into rock and roll until way later. It was 2018, and I know Bob knows the story, and I was restoring a bass with my grandfather, and Scott, I had gotten to know Scott really closely because I was going to quit music, and someone suggested I meet Scott, and I remember hanging out on the bus with him, and he started asking me what got me into music, and I told him it was, Van Halen 1 and Blizzard of Oz, and that's why I play. And he's like, well, why don't you just go find yourself in that? And I was burnt out on playing punk music. I was in the pop punk, like with the Warped Tour scene, and it wasn't me. So I was like, okay. And I sort of started going back, and he asked me about how do I know all the bands that I know, just obscure ones that someone my age wouldn't know. And I told him about my uncle. I met Dennis DeYoung from Styx when I was like 13, and he signed my uncle's photo. And he's like, wait, photo? I'm like, yeah, he was a photographer of bands, but my mom said it was like 5 shows. She always told me no one you cared about. It was just in the audience, doesn't matter. And so I never asked. He has no kids. I'm basically his kid, and just worked nights. I never saw him. And then so I decided I would ask him, and I don't think I'd ever had like a long conversation with him, and I was pretty nervous. And so he's like, ask him if he has humble pie. And that's when I remember he walked into the kitchen, and I was like, would you ever photograph humble pie? And he just stared at me for so long. And I'm like, oh no, I've asked the wrong question. And I was like, I shouldn't have asked. He's like, well, what year? And I'm like, okay, there's not 5 shows. And then that's when, I remember we walked out into the garage, and he has a 6-car garage. He's got all these GTOs in it. And I had never been in the garage. It was this like magical garage I would always see from afar. And he had just, Peter Frampton on the wall, and Bob Seger, and I think Dire Straits is up there. I can't remember who else. And then like this huge epic shot of Ted Nugent, and I just remember being like, where did you get these? He's like, oh no, I took those. I'm like, and then the first thing he did was he pulled out a photo album and he put it on top of the car and he just pointed to it, and it was said like, to Ray McRonson. I was like, oh my God. I'm like, my mom lied to me my whole life. But yeah, we ended up going through all that. I'll never forget that day because I had no idea. I just thought my uncle was just super into music, which he is, but I mean, he was at all of it from,
thousands of records too, doesn't he?
Thousands. A lot of them are, signed and made out to him. And like, I know his like prized possession is the one that John Lord signed out to him. So that's the one he loves the most.
Yeah, you actually surprised me as well with your knowledge on artists that you were around before you were born.
That's
for a young person to be into what the stuff that you've talked about and you're knowledgeable on is quite surprising. It's quite it's amazing, really.
I feel like a giant library at all times and a giant encyclopedia, because I'll be sitting on the phone with my uncle and he'd be like, oh, I remember, for example, I was talking to him about you, Bob, and I can't remember. He's like, oh, I remember buying a Rare Earth record when it first came out, and on the back of the record, they would promote other records that are on the same label. And on that was a band called Toe Fat. And so he's like, back then he had subscriptions. So I sent in for this album Toe Fat, but that was apparently Lee's like first commercial band. And so what the heck, Toe Fat? And you look it up and it's like toes that are people. So it's just like little nuggets.
I remember that name, Toe Fat, around at the time. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He
teaches little things all the time, and then a lot of it is just my own deep diving into stuff. Like my uncle, he had the Then Play On Fleetwood Mac record, but then I ended up deep diving and going farther into very specific rabbit holes. And
the real Fleetwood Mac with Peter Green and the blues band. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You must feel like you were born at the wrong time.
Every single day of my life. Yeah. Even when I was a kid, I never felt like I fit in, especially being a female, being into the rock and roll I was into, because it's like at that time, people weren't into those kinds of bands. And if they were, it was just like, well, that's on the radio.
Was that before you were 11 as well, or after you were 11 and you heard Blizzard and Eddie?
That day that I decided I want to play guitar, that was the first time I ever heard Blizzard Boz, which I can't remember hearing every song, but I very distinctly remember hearing Crazy Train and then Mr. Crowley. Those were the two that I remember hearing very vividly. But the first time I ever heard rock music, was probably 6 or 7 years old, and my uncle came to pick me up in his Tiger Gold GTO convertible. So the hood was down, and it was the first time I'd ever been in a car like that. And I remember sitting in the back, and we pulled out and he started blasting music, and it's probably the radio, I don't think he had an 8-track going. And I remember hearing Black Sabbath. At the time, I didn't know that's what it was. But I very vividly remember hearing Rock and Roll by Led Zeppelin in that car. So that was the first time I heard rock and roll. But it didn't set in until I was probably 10 or 11, and I heard AC/DC.
The original AC/DC with Bond.
Mm-hmm. TNT was the first song where I was like, wow, I think I want to be in a band. And my parents were like, no. That's cool. And then I heard Kiss, I think, and of course I got Led Zeppelin 4 on vinyl. My uncle gave it to me. He gave me Beatles and Led Zeppelin 4, and I chose Led Zeppelin 4 to listen to on vinyl first, and so I can still remember hearing Black Dog. But still at that point, it was like I I don't think I've been like, oh man, guitar. So it's like here I'm hearing Jimmy Page, I'm hearing Ace Frehley, and I'm still like, no, this is cool. But it wasn't until I got those two, and I was like, and then, you know, I have the guitar that I still have. I picked it out of the ad. I still have it, and I kept it all these years. So.
What was the Beatles album that he gave you?
I can't remember the name of it. It was a compilation, but it had a silver cover, and it was them drawn as like cartoon characters.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know that compilation. Yeah.
Those are my two that he gave me. I can't remember what other vinyls I got after that. But yeah.
Well, that's a good introduction. Led Zeppelin and the Beatles.
He would make me mix cassettes and mix CDs all the time, and
okay.
And then that's eventually when he was like, I remember, even if I close my eyes, you can see it. We had a Pontiac. It was like a turquoise Pontiac, and I remember it being pitch dark outside, and we're getting into the car, and my uncle comes running out, and he hands us Black Sabbath, Paranoid. And so I remember listening to that a lot and overplaying it. My brother was supposed to have it. I ended up with it. And I just like kept listening to it. And I was like, oh, this is different. This is cool. And then I remember one day going over to my grandparents' house with my uncle, and he gave my brother another CD. My brother stayed in his room for a while and came out, and I remember driving home, and he's like, check this out. And I have no idea how old I was. And I remember putting on the headphones, and it was Number of the Beast by Iron Maiden. So it's like, you know, I grew up with Motown, my mom playing, you know, Motown. And I remember even sitting backwards in like a car seat hearing Motown music. So I was probably like 2 or 3 years old. And so I'd always just had that. So to hear something like Number of the Beast, I was like, and then I never changed. I was just always chased after that, you know, all of the music that my uncle gave me. I just never let it go. And I just feel like it really shaped me, and especially my guitar teacher. He played for Bob Seger. So, you know, it was like he really instilled the blues in me a lot. And a lot of people just around me, it was like, they wanted to be Audio Slave, and they wanted to be Rage Against the Machine. And so I was like, and I remember my whole class wanting to be Zakk Wylde, and they all had the Les Paul copy.
Yeah.
Was it the ESP copy? Yeah. And I remember just sitting there like, they don't even know who Randy Rose is. So I was just separated completely from everyone. I was listening to music that my uncle was listening to, and you know, my brother is still into that kind of music. So yeah, I've always been just completely not in sync with my generation at all.
It's fantastic that you got into players like Peter Green and that sort of thing as well. I mean, that was one of Gary's big heroes and influences as well.
For me, this is 2018, so I was looking for music that really fit who I was as an artist. I wasn't trying to find like, oh, who is my sound? I was trying to find who actually matches what I'm already doing, just so I can go to a producer. Like I kept going to producers, and they kept trying to make me a pop star. And so that had actually happened. I had all this music, I wrote it on the guitar, and then I was turned into a pop star, and I was like, I don't even care anymore. I just want to do what I want to do. I'll just let that all go. And so I noticed that the biggest struggle was trying to show a producer, this is my sound, but I had no reference to that. So I ended up deep diving back into the 70s, which I always felt was my sound. And I'm like, who am I? Where am I? There's got to be someone in here that's somewhere close to what I am. And the first thing I heard was, I remember my uncle pulled down Then Play On. And I was like, oh, I'm going to go listen to that when I get
What was it? Sorry, I missed that.
The album Then Play On. It's the last album with Peter on it. from Fleetwood Mac.
Oh, okay.
And so I think it's the song
Oh,
Without
then Play On. Yes.
I think it's the song Without You. And I heard that and I was like, that's me. There I am. And I know I felt that way too when I heard Rory Gallagher's first album, and Fall Apart was what I heard, and I'm like, oh, there I am. So I've noticed I'm all of the ballads, which makes sense because Goodbye to Romance is why I started writing music. So it's like, oh, okay, I'm a copy of this in different forms, but Peter Green, especially the In the Skies record, it's the mixture of him and Snowy White together as a collaborative that I found like that. I always feel.
Well, everybody has their influences, and that's how you bring you out, by trying to sound like somebody else at first, and then you emerge out of that. And obviously, do you still have a guitar teacher, or are you finished lessons?
Yeah, so I have Scott Truly. I hope I pronounced his last name right. He's a teacher at Berklee College of Music.
Oh, okay.
He taught Bella Throne of Plush. I know he's given John Mayer a few lessons.
So you're having actual formal training as well in music, so you can sight read and that sort of thing?
When I learned guitar, I learned how to read music, and it wasn't until I got into high school until I could understand tablature. I couldn't understand it. It didn't make any sense to me. I could only read music. That was it. And a lot of people are the opposite. It's like, I can't read music, and I could only read music. And it was actually a huge struggle for me to learn tabs. It didn't make any sense. But I forced myself to, because at that time tablature was coming out in magazines, and I wanted to learn all the riffs, and I was like, what? Does this make any sense? I'll go ahead. And then I was in Glee Club, and I was in choir, and I was actually trained in Italian opera to sing.
Oh, great.
Originally. And so I had to have perfect pitch. And so I actually did a lot of competitions. I remember going to them with my mom, and in the competition, they hand you a piece of music that you've never seen before, never heard before. It's like, you have 30 seconds to, read everything out, and you have to match pitch immediately. So you're like,
wow.
So I remember doing that, and I remember people that I thought were some of the greatest singers around me, far better than me, they were coming out. And so a 1 is like, you're perfect. 2 or a 3 is like in the middle, 4 is and do well. And the people that I thought were incredible were coming out and being like, I got like a 3, I got a 2. And I was like, I'm going to get a 4. And I ended up getting a 1. And I think my mom was shocked, but they were like, no, you have perfect pitch. You might read perfectly. So even with music, I don't know if I can do it now, but I was definitely classically trained.
That's fantastic. What age were you then?
This was high school, so...
Like 15, 16 or something?
15 through 18 years old. Right. I did all the music.
So if they said to you, sing a D or sing a C sharp or sing a whatever, you could just sing that. Wow.
Yeah, I remember being somewhat one of the leaders of my Glee Club. And I remember they made me second soprano. And I remember my choir teacher telling me specifically, like, I'm making you second soprano because I know you're strong and you know where the notes are. And the second sopranos always struggle, like, where they're singing. So they always want to match soprano. So I don't know. I just...
God-given talent.
Yeah, it is, really. That's not something you can learn. You either have it or you don't.
No,
that's right.
My mom was a guitar player, and she didn't... It's not like she played nonstop, but she told me she got a guitar when she was like a teenager. Her guy was Peter Frampton. But I remember when I got my guitar, she was like, here, I'll show you how to play something. And it was Smoke on the Water. It's like, thanks, Mom.
Do you remember what key? Was it the right key?
I have no idea.
Oh, okay.
I remember she showed me Smoke on the Water, and then she showed me a Beatles song. But that was when I first started playing, and I had an acoustic. And then my uncle played the organ, so he didn't know how to play guitar.
So there is music in the family, especially with your mother.
My mother was a singer. My father was a singer. My uncle played the organ. He was like a child prodigy. I've listened to the tapes of him, and unbelievable. And then my grandfather on my mom's side, he played 5 instruments, and he was in a polka band.
Wow. Oh, so there's a lot of music in your family then.
And then my grandmother, my dad's mom, was a jazz singer in a band.
Oh,
so
wow.
Everyone was a singer. No one was really like actual, well, no one played a string instrument except for my mom. She dabbled in it. So I was really the first one.
Does she still play now? Has she still got a guitar? Does she still?
No.
Nothing?
It was just like for a little bit when she was a teenager. I wish my uncle would have kept up with the organ, because he would have been unbelievable. But I don't know when he quit. He joked with me. He's like, "Oh, I just learned everything I could learn, and then I just quit." You're killing me. Are you kidding? Just what the heck? So,
All right, I can do that. I'll stop now. Yeah.
Right? Yeah, but both my parents were singers, and I know my dad was a really good singer. But
are you a good singer? I don't think I've heard you sing. Are you a good singer?
I don't know. Am I?
I don't know. I haven't really heard you properly. No.
It'll be a surprise. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
We'll see. Yeah. No, Jack's like, you have to sing. You have to be the singer, and I'm like, oh, okay. So he's like, I don't really sing. He sings. I know he does, but yeah, he keeps pushing me to sing. So we'll see.
Gary did some amazing stuff. You know, talking about singing, some of the stuff that Gary played and sang. Oh, I mean, I have trouble walking and chewing gum at the same time. But Gary, I mean, wow, he played some incredibly complex things while he sang complex things as well. I remember he said it's just a matter of practicing it. He said, I practice a lot at home and doing it, and that just then it comes. Yeah. So you're going to sing all the songs on the album with Jack?
I don't sing all the songs.
All right, so we'll have some
maybe
guest
if I bat my eyes and ask,
what's that?
Please, someone, Joe Bonamassa, please save me. No, I wrote a song for Jack, and I told him he should sing it. He said yes. So I said okay. I sent him the lyrics, and he liked them. So there you go.
Okay.
Can't beat that either.
Right? I told him, I'm like, it should be me and him that both sing. And then Scott is going to sing a song. I think I'm going to make him sing that. So there's certain things I can't do. So despite contrary belief.
There was
I do everything.
There was a girl band that they're no longer together now, but they're called Crucified Barbara. I don't know if you ever heard of them. And
are they a metal band?
Yeah, and their hit, their one hit is called "Rock Me Like the Devil," and they're so talented, and they're no longer a band. They're called Crucified Barbara.
Where were they?
I think they were from the States here, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, but which part?
I couldn't tell you, Bob. I don't know.
Okay. Right.
Joan Jett was my woman. My uncle gave me the first Runaways album, and then I remember he gave me all 3 of them, like the original. And I remember listening to that, and that was a big deal.
To have I Love Rock and Roll on my jukebox. Joan Jett. Yeah. That was a good rock pop song, though, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Put another dime in the jukebox, baby.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she was great. I just saw her live. Well, it's probably been a couple of years ago now. But
Oh yeah, she good still?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, I think she's touring. Is she? She's opening for somebody. I just saw something recently. So she's still playing.
Yeah, she was good.
That Crucified Barbara. They're from Sweden.
Oh, Sweden.
Oh,
okay.
there you go. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, Rock Me Like the Devil is the video is great. The song's great.
Sounds a little spinal, doesn't it?
She has the girl singing for them, or at least the girl. I think that was the original singer. She's got a very unique voice.
Oh, okay. That's
she's like like when you heard Ronnie sing, you knew it was him.
Yeah.
When you hear this girl sing, you know this is Crucified Barbara.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
Oh yeah, it's if you get a chance, Amanda, watch the video. It's actually good.
Sure.
I will watch it. And if I forget, my uncle will watch this and then text me.
Well, I mean, it's just.
Wasn't it your uncle's idea that we do this?
Ron had asked.
Yeah, I am.
And I never check my Facebook, and Ron wrote me on Facebook, and so my uncle called me and reminded me and was like, "Can you please?"
Well, he was in the chat that day, and he typed in the chat. He's like, "Hey, did Amanda get back with you?" And I said, "No, not yet." Then 2 minutes later, he said, "I text her or something." I don't know.
He's like, "Please make this happen for me." When I first met Bob, I of course told my uncle, and for both of us, we really got closer because of that album, because we went through all of his photos, and then I still remember looking at Van Halen and being like, wow, this is cool, but it would have been so cool if we got Randy Rhoads or Blizzard of Oz, Ozzy can't get it all, that's fine. And then that was the last one that was hidden in a box. And he was like, wait, there's something in here. And so, and I remember going back to his house, and he found his passes, and he showed me, and I just couldn't believe it. That was the last show he ever shot. The last show he ever went to was that. So for us, and then he gave me Blizzard of Oz for Christmas that year, because I didn't. He's like, you don't have this on vinyl? I'm like, no. So for him, I told him, and he's like, that's like one of my favorite records of all time. And so he kind of told me about when he got it. He's like, I still remember going into this record shop. I bought it the day it came out. So it was just interesting to like hear why he gave it to me. Well, gave it to my brother that ended up mine. So it's just interesting. So for him, he was like, Bob Daisley. I've never heard him so excited in his entire life. Usually, he'll tell me stories like, yeah, I met Leon Bridges or whatever, but that he was super excited.
Oh, that's nice. Hello, Uncle.
Right? He said hello. Yeah. I texted him. I was like, oh, I'm going to do this interview. If you tell him I said hi.
Hi, Uncle.
Yeah.
I like Uncle Raymond. I do.
I love my uncle. He's the best. I'll get into music, and then he's like, have you heard this? And he'll put on the most obscure thing you could ever think of, and I love it because I'm like, who else would know this? I think he's read through all of his like encyclopedias for vinyl collection books. So
yeah, you had some I mentioned some stuff to you that was like really obscure, and you were familiar with it. People like Mike Ferber and
mm-hmm.
That's pretty amazing.
That was just going through my uncle's collection, and I had to catalog everything. But he had stuff for sale, so I had to go through 45,000 records.
Oh.
I listened to almost every single one, and then I think my uncle has 15,000 in his 25,000 in his collection.
That's a lot of records.
Wow. So
imagine you're so knowledgeable.
My uncle. Yeah.
Have you ever heard of the head pins?
What year?
In the early 80s.
I haven't.
Where are they from?
I knew you was going to ask that, Bob. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. They're just called the Headpins. They had a female singer,
Right.
and I thought they were really good, but they never made it as big as they I think they should have. Or
Well, that
If
happens
this
a
is in
lot.
the show, my uncle's gonna watch it and then call me and be like, "Tell him it's this and this year." That's how he works. Like, people are always so shocked. They're like, "How do you know the entire like lineup of someone's life and their entire rig and when they got a guitar?" And I'm like, "Ask my uncle." I just was force fed it, especially when we had to go through all of his photos. And I remember sitting at the computer, and it was the first time he'd seen his photos since he took them. And so I'm like, okay, I scanned in. It took like a year and a half to scan them all in. And we had to click through each one just because he wanted to see it. And he would go like, "Do you know who that is?" "I don't know." And he's like, "Well, when I'm gone, who else is going to know? It's yours." So I really listened. And it was really important to me because I love music. And it's like this band turned into inspiration for someone else that we know today. So it's like, I'd never heard of the Boomtown Rats. I had never heard of a lot of the bands actually that he was photographing that went on to do huge things, or at least someone in the band. Like, he had like a bootleg Steppenwolf, but it was Frankie Banali at 16. And he's like, "Yeah, I remember going there and seeing it." So just little minute things that I learned about people's careers just through my uncle and his photography, and it was just interesting. And that man knows way more than he should know. But I mean, he gave it all to me. I took use of it by being a musician. So there you go.
You have to run with the baton now.
Yes, I didn't just listen to it. I applied it to music. So
Yeah, well, your knowledge is very good, from what I've gathered so far. So, yeah, well done.
it's rare that I don't know something. So Ron, you stumped me. That's a good one. I even know psychedelic bands. So.
You said Frankie. Bob, I saw an interview once on YouTube where Frankie was supposed to play with you guys in Aussie in the Blizzard, but he didn't get to go to England for some reason. I saw the interview.
His name may have come up in a list of possible auditions for drummers, and Randy probably put him forward. And I think probably because Jet Records, Don Arden, David Arden, wanted to keep it, if they could, based in the UK and as a UK band. But I remember hearing his name, Frankie Banali. But yeah, he didn't come over, and we didn't ever do anything with him.
Did you see the release that was a year ago that they did on, was that something Icon, Randy Rhoads guitar icon or something like that? What was it, a film or something? Or
a documentary?
It's a documentary, and Tracy Guns narrates it. There's not a lot of Aussie stuff in it for certain reasons. So it's mostly Pre-Quiet Riot and then All Quiet Riot.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think I did see that. I've seen quite a lot of them. I probably saw that one as well.
Maybe it's the is it the Diary of a Guitar Icon or something like
it's Reflections of a Guitar Icon.
Okay.
2022.
Right.
What, is it 2 years old now? Okay. I know I bought it on demand off of Xfinity, so I got it that way.
You know where the name Diary of a Madman came from?
No.
It was an old B film that Vincent Price was in, and it was called Diary of a Madman. And I thought that'd make a good title for an album. And I remember saying to Ozzy one day, I said, "I've got a title for the next album, and see what you think." And I said, "Diary of a Madman." He said, "Oh, that's fucking great. I love that."
Well, that's how they got their Black Sabbath name, was from the Boris Karloff movie Black Sabbath. That's right. And Bad Company and Young Cannibal, All Fine Young Cannibals, and there's so many. Damn Yankees. They're all movies. Yeah, I would love to know, just to go back and just a lot of bands, like where they got this idea from. That would be interesting. Van Halen,
well, that was their name.
Well, I know, but I know there's a song. I was trying to think.
Hey, Eddie, how did you come up with the band name?
David Lee Roth. So yeah, I mean, there was a song. I can't think of the name of the song.
By who? Van Halen?
Yeah, I think
Johnny knows everything.
Just say one word.
Oh my God, I can't think of it.
Text it later.
Yeah, say your number on here.
Yeah, already did that. But I was just trying to think where they came up with the name for that song. I can't think of the name of the song now. Oh well, I'll remember.
Oh, it came from a movie or something?
I don't know if it did or not. I can't remember.
What's the lyric? What's the lyric?
I knew you was going to ask me that too. Hold on, wait a minute. I'm trying to think which it was. Had to have been on one of the first 3 albums.
Wait till you get properly old, then it'll all be. It gets worse.
Wait a minute. I'm now it's driving me crazy. I gotta look it up.
Oh, you know what album it's on?
No, I'm going to find that out right now.
Oh, okay.
But I remember thinking, where would that name come from? Let's see.
Well, speaking of Van Halen, Bob, did you ever meet Van Halen? Did you ever?
Yeah, we did shows with him when I was with Ozzy, and we did Monsters of Rock in Europe.
Oh, 84.
Yeah.
The Donington.
Yeah, Donington, and there was a big one in Germany. There was a Monsters of Rock in Germany as well. And it was after that show, we were all in the bar together. It was Van Halen, us, AC/DC, all the bands that were on the show. I remember being at the airport the next morning. Now, where was it? It was somewhere like Dusseldorf or something. I can't remember. But I remember Malcolm Young, because I knew Malcolm. I knew Malcolm and Bon most of all out of those lads. And I remember seeing Malcolm with his head in a garbage bin thrown up because Angus was a teetotaler. He didn't drink anything, but Malcolm, he loved to drink, and he'd overdone it the night before. And at the airport, he had his head in a bin thrown up. Yeah.
Yeah. Dude, that's amazing.
Yeah, I remember when they first came to London. I think it was either 75 or 76. And somebody said to me, some of your fellow countrymen are coming to town. I said, who's that? And they said, AC/DC. Well, I'd known Bon he was in a band called the Valentines. They had 2 singers, and he was one of them. And then after that, he was in a band called Fraternity. And I'd seen him with Fraternity, and they were a good band, and I loved Bon's voice. He was great. And I knew Bon had joined AC/DC by then. So I found out where their hotel was, and I went and had a drink with Malcolm and Bon that night. And that was the day they got there to London that first time. Well, Bon didn't live far from me. I lived in Holland Park, and he lived in Kensington, just off Kensington High Street. And he came to my place, and I went to his. And it was horrible how I found out. I walked up Holland Park Avenue one day, and it was on the headlines of the newspapers, rock star found dead. And I was with Phil Carlo, who was he was a tech with Bad Company, and he lived in the flat below me where Clive used to live. And Phil and I were walking up Holland Park Avenue, and we saw that the headlines. We thought, God, I wonder who that is. And so Phil told me later, but he didn't know I knew Bon so well, and he sort of yelled up from his window. He said, I found out who it was, Bon Scott. And I just stood there. I was knocked the wind out of me, It was horrible. Because some idiot left him in a car in winter overnight, drunk. He passed out, and they just left him, and they put a single blanket over him in the middle of winter in London where it was freezing, and he just died from the cold. That's lovely bloke too, Bon was. He really, really nice, real down-to-earth, proper person,
Wasn't the one band he was in before he wasn't like a, for lack of a better term, like a doo-wop type band?
No, he was in a pop band to start with called the Valentines. That was when, and they had two singers, Vince Lovegrove and Bon. And then after that, he was in a band called Fraternity. And they were kind of they reminded me a little bit of, Traffic with Stevie Winwood and that kind of, a bit like that. That's what they reminded me of anyway. But they're a good band, and they were all sort of suited. He was doing well in that. And by the time I was in England, he'd soon after that joined AC/DC. They were an up-and-coming band, and it was a great lineup. That was the best lineup with Bon. I mean, the guy that took his place, the Geordie guy, lovely bloke, great singer, and the next best thing to Bon, I'd say he was a good replacement, but there was nothing like Bon. He was a special person. Did you find the name, the Van Halen song?
No, I didn't.
That's funny.
I'm getting old. I remember you were talking about it one night, John, on one of the Van Halen shows, and I remember thinking, where in the hell did that name come from? And I can't for the life of me think of which one it was now. It was just like it's not, but I mean, like Pound Cake. Who would come up with the name Pound Cake for a song? But it was something. It was like, what? I don't understand that.
I think we all.
Well, it's like the title of the Uriah Heep album, The Bominog. People say, where did that come from? I just made it up. Well, I'd been watching like an old, the old Hammer horror films, and there was something in it where they referred to the demon or whatever it was in it as an abomination, and a lot of this sort of demon things had an OG at the end of it, like Magog and Yog Sothoth and H.P. Lovecraft sort of things, and I thought, okay, abomination, put an OG on the end, abominog. So that's how it came about. So, I mean, it's not a real word; it was just made up, but it kind of, suited it. Yeah. So we can do this again. Maybe when Amanda and Jack and I do this record, we can.
Yeah.
Another one.
Very
Get Jack
interesting.
in there. Get Jack in there.
Jack did a show, so I think he was tired and went to bed.
Yeah, well, it's 3 or 4 in the morning for him, isn't it? So yeah. Yeah. Who'd blame him?
Do it later for us. I don't know, Ron. Where do you?
I'm in Ohio. It's 11:38 here.
Oh, okay. Where in Ohio?
I'm clear on the eastern side, right by. I'm in what they call like the northern panhandle.
Oh, okay.
So I'm like, I can be in West Virginia in 7 minutes, and I can be in Pennsylvania in about 30 minutes.
Okay.
Oh.
I know exactly where you're at. I'm 30 minutes north of Ann Arbor.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Yeah. So not that far away from you.
Yep.
What's your address?
Well,
Tell us.
That always sounds strange to me, measuring distance with time.
Oh.
30 minutes north. How do you measure distance with time?
We all drive here.
Oh, that's it. Yeah. I remember I walked into a shop once when I was looking for something, and I said, "Excuse me, can you tell me the way?" She said, "Oh, yeah, it's just 20 minutes down the road." I said, "Oh, okay." And she didn't realize I was on foot. I said, "Oh, well, I'm not driving." She said, "Oh, you can't walk there."
Well, I'll tell Johnny I could be here in 2 hours or wherever. He's like, 2 hours? That's nothing for me. I mean, the traffic you guys have there.
Being out here in California, 2 hours is like nothing.
Yeah, everything's 2 hours to
Expect to at least spend 2 hours to get 20 minutes away, you know?
Yeah.
I can be in Columbus in just under 2 hours.
When I moved out here, I was like, where did all of my time go? I don't understand. I'm doing the same things. I'm working the same amount, and it's the traffic. And it's like, I'm from Motor City capital. Everyone drives a car, and not even with that. The traffic is so crazy out here.
Motown.
My whole family is a car family. We weren't music. We were deeply rooted in cars.
Right.
So I remember I didn't really get to know him, but my grandfather was the general foreman of Cadillac under GM.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, so I know he did a lot with cars. And then on my mom's side, it just goes all the way back up to Henry Ford, and people work directly for Henry Ford. So.
Right. Interesting stuff.
Yes, so I'm definitely deeply rooted in car.
Yeah.
Including my uncle.
Yeah, Raymond's in chat. He's great.
Yeah.
What's that?
I said her uncle's great in the chat. He if someone says something about a certain band, he corrects them if they're wrong.
Well, good, as he should.
Yeah, and he's like the fact checker, I guess. So
now you know why I know as much as I know. What do you mean you don't know? And then he did this band, and then he was in a band with this guy, and then and then he pulls out all the CDs and all the vinyls, and then they did this. Have you not heard this? How do you not hear this? And then it goes on for hours, and then before you know it, you know way too much, and you're like, oh gosh.
You can never know too much.
Yeah. He's like that with cars too.
Well, it looks like he's chosen a good protege with you.
Yeah, there you go.
I really think I was the surprise for him, because he was giving it all to my brother, and he was like, all right. And then little did he know that it trickled down to me. It never suspected me. So it's the quiet ones, right?
Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that at all.
Right. I remember when I got into Van Halen, I think my mom was like, yes, because my dad's the disco guy. And my mom's the rock and roller. And so I remember when I got into rock and roll, then we'd get in the car, and I remember her blasting like Ozzy, and I remember her blasting like Van Halen. And I was just like, okay, I got a cool mom.
How old were you then?
Oh, I was in my teens, like early teens. And even through high school, even to this day, I know she drives her car and she's still listening to those radio stations.
Oh, good.
Back when music was good. Agree.
Does your mum know your connection with Jack and me and that?
Mm-hmm. I told her. I think at first she was just like, sure. Me and my mom are very close. And so, like, for her, she's just like, you know, she probably sees me and remembers me begging on my hands and knees for the blue guitar. You know, the day that I heard those albums, she's probably looking at me like, what? So I did tell her I was doing this, and she said she just texted me very cool. So, but I know she would go with my uncle, and they would go see shows together. And there are photos of her backstage, I think, and it's Rush in '77, and then there's her at Kiss in '78. So she's in with all the reels of film, which is cool.
Wow,
so
that's
there's
awesome.
my mom. Yeah, like there's my mom backstage. I'll trade you lives.
What did you say?
I'll trade you lives.
Oh, right.
I got out of there. I'm like, what? There's pictures of her. I think it's like outside of, I think they went and saw Boston in '77, and like her and her friends, and that's in with the photos. So when we first scanned and everything, I had to be like, oh, there's my mom. I got to take that out. Can't have those in the folder. So.
My first concert that I ever went to, I was only 4 years old. It was the Monkees.
Ooh,
oh, wow.
Nice.
And then that was in 1969 here in Ohio. But then I saw, in '77, I saw Angel with Punky Meadows and Craig Giffria. They were
What year did you say that was?
77.
Okay.
Guess what my first concert was?
I know,
What?
because I read the book, but I won't say.
I would have no idea.
The Beatles.
I swear to God, I was going to say the Beatles, and I thought, well,
Right. Yeah,
that would have been great.
That was life changing. It really was.
Oh, I bet.
I'd been playing bass about, I don't know, 6 weeks or something. I'd played guitar before that for like 15 months or whatever. But to see the Beatles live after I'd started playing bass, it was life changing. I walked out of that place with my mouth open, like, what have I just witnessed? Was mind blowing. Yeah.
They definitely changed the.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Like changed a lot of things and inspired a bunch of people.
Oh, certainly. Yeah, bit of an understatement. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Inspired everybody.
I grew up on the Beatles, Elvis, Johnny Cash, Dolly Parton.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah.
I remember having an Elvis Presley T-shirt when I was about 7 or 8. Yeah.
And my dad looked like Elvis for they were younger.
Oh, did he? Uh-huh. My dad was Elvis. My mom knew Elvis very well. All right, I suppose we better knock this on the head now, eh? Or wind it up. Or...
Yeah.
If you got any other questions, or if you want to, do a top up or anything else, we can organize it again for another time. Sure.
That'd be great, man.
Oh wow, yeah.
That's my dad holding me in 1969 or 1970.
Oh wow. Yeah, he's got an Elvis thing happening there, isn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's great. Yeah. Terrific.
And my son, he even looked like him. When my son and my dad or my son would say, "Pap, remember when you was Elvis?" No, son, he was never Elvis.
Have you ever seen a documentary on Elvis? I think it's called Elvis the Searcher.
No.
That's really good. Really good. I'd recommend it. If you're even vaguely an Elvis fan, then see Elvis the Searcher.
Yeah.
Mm.
Oh, yeah.
Very good.
Love to see it.
Yeah.
Dude. Well, Bob, thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you all.
Thank you.
And Amanda. Thank you, Amanda.
Remember, if you come up with that song, Bob, that you thought you can do better now.
I will. Yep.
That would be very interesting to find out.
Yep. Okay. I've made a note of your number, and I'll give you a hoy.
All right. I appreciate it.
Right on.
So lovely to see you all. Lovely to talk to you all, and blessings to you all.
Thank you, Bob.
4 peas in a pod. And there's 2.
You too. You too. We'll do this again.
Yes, certainly we will. Yeah. We'll get Jack in there if we can get the timing right. Yeah. All right. Well, love to you all and blessings, and we shall speak again soon.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. All the best. Cheers.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.